Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to AmCham Mongolia's second Regional Digital Economy Forum. This is actually our June monthly meeting in the context of digital economy, and we're excited that you're all here. My name is Chaklantogus Kambatar. I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy of AmCham Mongolia, and I'm really pleased to host you and for today's economy forum. I would like to also say a warm welcome to His Excellency U.S. Ambassador to Mongolia, Richard Buangan, and our AmCham Chairman, Gary Biondo, and our Board of Directors, Randolph Koppa as well. And we also have special guests from Cambodia, Mango Tanga Consulting Company working with USAID project. Please welcome them, Christopher and Bradley sitting in the back. Please wave. Thank you. Let us give a round of applause to them, actually. They traveled all the way from Cambodia. I'm excited that this is a great initiative AmCham is doing for the second year. Last year, our ICT and Digital Economy Committee hosted the first conference, which was very big success. And this is now a little bit more expanding into regional level. So we're going to have a few AmChams in the Asia, namely Cambodia and Indonesia joining with us. So we really appreciate that. And without further ado, we have actually the Tingis, advisor of the Minister of Digital Development and Communications, Tingis, here with us. Thank you so much for joining today. So without further ado, I would like to ask Chairman of AmCham Mongolia, Gary Biondo, to say opening remarks for us. Let us give a round of applause.
First, I just want to thank all of you for coming. When you stand here and you see a few empty seats in the room, it just reminds me of the commitment that you have made to come here today. This is an interesting time in UB. I can remember a couple of years ago when there was absolutely nothing to do and nothing going on, so a room like this would have been full. And I think this speaks to the vibrancy of the community right now and the economy, and that things are starting to move. So once again, I thank all of you for making the time to come here today. I know everyone's busy. Mongolia's digital economy has been experiencing significant growth and transformation in recent years, harnessing the power of technology to drive innovation and economic development, but most importantly, to improve the lives of its citizens. Day by day, Mongolia is fully embracing the changes it needs as a country to foster transparency, acceleration, reachability, and connectivity for its peoples and its businesses. We live in a world where we are all connected as stakeholders to the digital landscape, and we hope that that landscape is with equality, transparency, and parity. This is what brings us all here today, together today. We are here to exchange valuable insights and knowledge into how, as a collective society, we can navigate through this historical shift. I'll go off speech for a minute and just talk because it is a historical shift. A little bit of a personal story. I can remember 30 years ago, I was assigned to a small city in southern China. 30 years ago is not that long ago. This small city was connected to the greater world by 2 flights a week from Hong Kong to this city. Of course, there was no Wi-Fi, there was no internet, there were no smartphones, and this city did not even have 5-star hotels that I could watch BBC or CNN. I was completely isolated. I subscribed to a print newspaper, the International Herald and Tribune. I loved that newspaper. It was flown into this city twice a week. So every 3 days, I got connected to the world. But during those 3 days, when I was waiting for my newspapers to come, I had no idea what was going on in the world. I lived outside of time. Things were happening that I didn't know. So here we are 30 years later, which for some of us at my age really isn't that long, okay? And now we instantaneously know everything that is happening in the world. While I'm standing here speaking, as soon as I get through speaking, I pick up my phone and I'm going to read about things that happened while I was standing here. This is the historical change that we're living through. So I'm confident that the speeches and the remarks by our prominent leaders joining us for this forum today will highlight success stories, challenges, and solutions. As the chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce, I'm honored to be representing this vibrant community of enterprises and companies that are the driving force of Mongolia's economy, including its digital transformation. Our members, our AmCham members, are always on the cutting edge of innovation and diversification, often setting the highest standards in the community for other stakeholders to follow. These member companies and leaders are guided by the ICT and Digital Economy Committee of the American Chamber of Commerce. As Mongolia continues to harness the potential of its digital economy, it faces the challenges that all countries face, such as cybersecurity, data privacy, and drafting legislation to assist and protect the citizens of the country and foster economic growth. AmCham believes that with a proactive approach, strategic investments, and collaborations with industry stakeholders, Mongolia, our country, we can be well positioned to leverage technology as a catalyst for economic development, innovation, and social progress. The digital economy holds immense progress for our country to empower its citizens and position the country as a dynamic player in the global digital landscape. Today, we have experts in this field from AmCham Mongolia and from some of our fellow AmCham chapters in Cambodia, Laos, Indonesia, Myanmar, and Thailand. We also have colleagues of Mongolia and Asia, which is a leading digital marketing agency that will share their perspectives during the keynote presentation and the panel discussions. As always, our close partner, Ambassador Richard Buangan, and the U.S. Ambassador to Mongolia, has graciously joined us and will be delivering his remarks shortly. I thank you, sir, as always. In closing, I thank all of you for joining us today. I welcome our colleagues from our fellow American Chamber of Commerces and from Mongolia and Asia. I look forward to a productive and insightful June monthly meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that after the forum, we will follow this with a networking night just outside the ballroom. And that will be after our presentations, speeches, and discussions. So to get started, please welcome the U.S. Ambassador to the stage. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Gary, for that warm welcome and terrific remarks. It's a pleasure to be among you again today. Thank you, AmCham, for your leadership in this space and for starting the conversation today on what I hope will be many conversations of a very important topic, particularly one that is affecting many democracies of the world, especially Mongolia. AmCham members, friends in the digital industry, those joining online, thank you for joining, and thank you for the invitation to speak to you all today. I also want to extend a special thanks to AmCham's ICT and Digital Economic Committee and the Ministry of Digital Development and Communications for organizing this very important event. The digital universe encompasses our families, our schools, our jobs, our businesses, our ability to express our politics, in short, every aspect of our lives. We cannot ignore how integrated our lives and our societies have become to technology and the power of digital. As responsible stakeholders, we must be cognizant of the power of online collaboration, conversation, transactions, and community building, and harness them for the good of society, for the diffusion of ideas and knowledge. While I was in Washington, D.C. recently, joining some of your AmCham members on their annual door knock, we spoke about the potential of Mongolia to cultivate its technology and digital industry to further contribute to Mongolia's goals of diversifying its economy and strengthening ties with its third neighbors. Something that was raised in numerous conversations over the course of our trip was the assessment of how digital economies transform societies to make them more resilient, open, and transparent. We spoke about how technology creates digital democracies and also, sadly, digital authoritarianisms. Both use technology and digital tools to advance their policy goals. Both have visions of technology transforming their societies. Digital democracies use technology to make their societies more resilient, open, and transparent, all in the name of maintaining freedom. Digital authoritarianisms, as we have seen in many parts of the world, use technology to control, manipulate, and subvert, all in the name of maintaining order. So I ask you all this question: which one does Mongolia want to become? Obviously, that answer is very clear, and it forms the basis of our conversation today. A government's interest to protect health and safety, cybersecurity, intellectual property rights, political legitimacy, and financial stability are all legitimate. However, it is the obligation of every democratically elected government, every country that embraces rule of law and open market economy principles, to safeguard personal freedoms, the freedom of speech and thought, the freedom of worship or not worship as one pleases, the freedom to engage in commercial activities. As we are seeing now in many democratic countries, the desire by governments to create a safe digital space and the need to protect fundamental freedoms in that same space are in tension with one another. And in order to resolve that tension, governments must be open and find partners with the business community, academia, NGOs, to strike the right balance between protecting the digital space from harmful and malicious actors and nurturing the digital economy so it becomes an integral part of a country's overall economic development. To take advantage of all the possibilities of the digital universe, businesses and governments need to develop policies in consultation with each other in order to nurture digital environments while responsibly securing personal and economic freedoms. Mongolia finds itself, like the United States and so many other nations, in the initial phases of walking this digital tightrope. Governments and the public have a right to be protected from overt criminal activities, be they on or offline. Mongolia's laws generally deal with this reasonably well. Political speech and commercial speech, however, are so intertwined that you cannot sacrifice one without compromising the other. Concerns about potential restrictions of online speech have permeated recent discussions of Mongolia's developing e-commerce sector. Mongolia and the United Nations, in concert with the EBRD and the Republic of Korea, have begun to address some aspects of these concerns in recent public discussions. Their soon-to-be-released report assessing Mongolia's e-trade readiness contain policy goals which align with long-standing efforts Mongolia and the United States have jointly pursued. In digital policy, the United States has been and will remain committed to sharing cybersecurity knowledge and experience with our public and private sector partners in Mongolia. We have partnered with the Ministry of Digital Development and Communications, prosecutors and judges and administrators, as well as private sector banking, mining, and technology companies to deliver in-person and online workshops on cybersecurity laws, regulations, and practices, and to learn how these different actors respond to the challenges they face. We have brought experts from the U.S. Department of Justice, Carnegie Mellon Software Engineering Institute, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and American non-governmental organizations to discuss developing human resources, creating and implementing laws and regulations, bringing the public and private sector together to protect our networks from malign actors, and aligning our practices without sacrificing essential freedoms upon which economic innovation and vitality depend. E-trade also depends upon a digital infrastructure that is secure, interoperable, independent, and resistant to manipulation and disruption. This is a challenge we share with our partners. Mongolia and the United States are working together to bring infrastructure options not bound by cables or wires to urban and rural Mongolia. These new digital infrastructures, vast satellite networks, for example, are democratic in nature, offering access to all in the fullest sense, and they will require flexibility in the legal and administrative frameworks if we are to take advantage of their potential. Human resource potential is also essential to digital development, both politically and commercially. This includes building English language capacity and supporting inclusive participation in the tech sector by all segments of society so we can leave no one behind. We conduct a variety of English language teaching and learning activities through methodology training and open language English teaching resources and materials, such as massive open online courses or MOOCs. We have brought women from NASA and Silicon Valley here to encourage women in STEM. In September, we will hold a Women in Clean Energy workshop here in Ulaanbaatar. We will continue working with our local public and private partners in the digital landscape, including cybersecurity, digital law and regulations, entrepreneurship, and English language training. If we can harness the power of public and private partnerships, if the government and private sector see themselves as partners and not competitors, then the digital future looks bright for Mongolia. It can be a country that stands tall among other digital democracies, a model for others in the region to emulate. It can advance the vision that is shaped by everyone in this room of a Mongolia with a robust, diverse economy where investors come in confidence and aspiring young entrepreneurs know their innovation and hard work will be rewarded. Thank you very much for allowing me to share my thoughts with you. I look forward to hearing about some of the discussions during this regional forum and discovering new, innovative ways to collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for that wonderful remarks. So we're right on time. That's great. So we will actually, without any further ado, I'm going to ask the first keynote speech, Mr. Bradley J. Murg, PhD Provost and Vice-Rector, Paragon International University, Cambodia. He traveled from Cambodia, and let us welcome him to the stage with applause. Thank you.
I'm tall. Easier this way. All right. I think if we can hear up the PowerPoint, but while we're waiting, it's a pleasure to be here in Ulaanbaatar. I was last here 19 years ago in 2004. So it is absolutely stunning, having followed the development of the Mongolian economy, to have a chance to come back and see what an incredibly different city has developed, the level of economic growth and development. So quite exciting for me, and wonderful to also be here this time in June rather than in November. Quite a bit of a difference. So I think we are all set. Click. Got some of it, but I think we have to zoom out a little bit, maybe. Into every life, a little tech problem must fall. We shall see. Yeah.
It's not going back because it's in presentation mode.
Okay.
But the bottom of the presentation is not being.
Okay.
Yeah, so
We'll just go with it. Yeah. We'll just go with it.
thank you, sir.
No problem. All right, we'll just go with such as life. All right, well, I think we're just going to miss the bottom part, but I'll do my best to fill in the gaps as we go. So I think we want to do our best to stay on schedule already. Thanks so much. So, all right, when we talk about the question of digital policy and we talk about areas of policy intervention, this is one of the most fascinating topics because we are somewhat in uncharted territory. So I'm a political economist by training. My area of expertise is institutions, institutional change, legal reform to essentially address questions like this. Now, when we look at questions of digital policy intervention, we're a little bit zoomed there. But what we essentially see is areas such as content moderation, et cetera, are increasingly becoming very, very popular. So today, my job is to initially talk about and look at the question of social media space. And while there's a number of other areas, I'm going to try to focus as much as possible just there. So, challenges, regulatory, try it again. Better, viewable, awesome. Challenges. When we're talking about regulating social media, just the simple question of that by itself is incredibly difficult. When you're talking about the regulatory landscape here, we're talking about a panoply of issues that is going to present enormous levels of complexity for any ministry, for any parliament to essentially handle, going from privacy, free speech, intellectual property, and on and on and on and on. And it's not simply a one-off question of regulation. Rather, it's engaging with and dealing with constant technological development. And just to pivot over there, next slide, please. The term paradigm or paradigmatic change is one of the most overly used phrases in the world. Everything is that we're shifting from one paradigm to another. But if we look at the meaning of the term, and we actually look at it in its sense in the philosophy of science, what we are seeing right now is paradigmatic change. Historically, old paradigm of communications technology. What we saw essentially was a period of, let's try to get it back. Essentially a period where communications technologies changed incredibly slowly and combined with very significant regulatory constraints, ultimately limited providers to developing functionally similar services. Our technology was different, the regulatory framework was different, and this constrained very significantly how tech firms, communication firms would ultimately develop. The world in which we're in today is a world where technologies that make social media possible are those that are flexible and general purpose, and they essentially support constant evolution, constant change in technology, in apps. As a regulator, as a policymaker, this is, frankly, painful. This is something that requires constant adaptation, perhaps. But this is one of the debates that we're seeing throughout Southeast Asia and globally. When we think about institutional change, when we think about regulatory change, we essentially have two models in political economy. One, the punctuated equilibrium model of institutional change or regulatory change, where we essentially see is a period of stasis, followed by a period of revolution, a period of renegotiation, a period that's a critical juncture, followed by another period of stasis, followed by revolution, and so on and so forth. The alternative model is one of gradualism, one of step-by-step reform, step-by-step change, et cetera. And these are debated throughout the literature in political science, in political economy. Folks win Nobel Prizes for discussing which of these is the more effective. And the debate's still going on. What we see in the current technology and digital space, particularly in social media, is that neither of these are likely to fully capture the reality of what's taking place. Our theoretical frameworks that we've historically used to understand policy are simply not fully effective here. We're flying without a net to some degree as policy analysts and scholars. What this also tells us is that moving ahead from a regulatory perspective, following the great words of Victor Hugo, caution is the eldest child of wisdom. The natural impetus of policymakers very often is to do something. And whatever is the nearest, whatever is the most convenient option, that is the something that be done. Now, historically, we know this is hugely problematic. And what we've seen so far in Southeast Asia and globally, trying to share our experience here in Mongolia, is that the trends have been essentially to apply pre-existing regulatory models. Go back to what you know, go back to the frameworks that you know, go back to the policies that you know, go back to the systems that you know, to try to engage with these governance questions. Moreover, we also know institutions are sticky. They stay around. They have positive feedback mechanisms. So oftentimes, rather than creating a new ministry or creating a new administrative department, we'll see, well, we'll just apply this particular ministry to this particular problem. Not always necessarily effective. At the same time, however, it's fundamentally impossible to engage in wholesale institutional redesign at every instance of technological development. You simply can't do it. You cannot simply say, okay, this change happened, we're going to build this new policy, this new institution, et cetera. You'd be constantly redesigning, nothing would ever work. So we're stuck somewhere between this gradualism versus a punctuate equilibrium approach. Finally, costs of institutional change and the risk of error in policy redesign are both reasons that we've seen to only undertake this sort of policy approach when we ultimately see that the benefits are very clear and that there's at least some period of time where this policy change will be effective. Things to be aware of, things to note before we move ahead, looking at some of the main issues that we've seen in Southeast Asia and across the region. When we even begin to look at the governance of the social media sector, data collection is already incredibly weak. We see survey after survey after survey, and we see significant areas where, people are essentially using data sets that are highly incomplete and unfortunately drawing policy conclusions off of them. At the same time, Twitter overwhelmingly used to tell us what are the trends in social media, where are things going, even though every bit of other data we have tells us Twitter is used by quite a minority, a very influential minority, but a minority of folks compared to Facebook and other apps. Oh, wonderful. Things we also do know. Devices matter. 70% of users here in Asia, in Southeast Asia, essentially their access is limited to mobile phones. And their access is, because of slow internet speed, essentially limited to app-based access versus full internet access. Folks aren't reading long-form studies. They're not going to check out the reliability of information. Rather, hence the popularity of TikTok, other entities. Everything's quite short, everything's very, very fast. Because the phone is the tool that folks are ultimately using. Thus, when we move into the question of governance, what we're looking at is firm level governance. Rather than targeting the individual, looking at the governance of that particular sector, and we'll get into this in a little bit more detail in a few minutes, is the area where we're seeing the most conversations develop. Southeast Asia, some trends that might also be parallel here in Mongolia. Higher trust in social media than in traditional media, overwhelmingly across every single country in the region. It's remarkable to see 80–85% in some countries. Second, we also see that app jumping, folks not simply sticking to one particular platform. Younger generations now saying, oh, well, Facebook, et cetera. No, I'm not going to follow that. That's from my parents. That's way out of date. I want to look at something else. Third, responses to strict social media regulation. And there are many countries in the region that have developed very, very strict social media laws. Ultimately, though, these have proven to be highly ineffective. The result has been that folks essentially jump to private platforms in smaller groups. It's not blocking the content that folks essentially want to block. So even the intent of limiting a digital space ultimately becomes overwhelmingly ineffective or cost prohibitive if one actually wants to go that far. The other challenge of this, of restricting social media, is that it limits the data available for analysis. For those actually working on building regulation and building up these new institutions, the data that we need, the data that's required, doesn't become available because people move into private platforms. It's simply not accessible. Ultimately, the approach that we've observed, though, is that it has been naturally a process of gradualism. of institutional conversion and institutional layering that we've seen across the region, moving ministries that previously had purview over various areas of communication into digital oversight, et cetera. And we've seen varying levels of success with that approach. India and Singapore are two of the most straightforward examples of the policy model that we're seeing throughout Asia as a whole, which is essentially developing very clear guidelines and policies saying, okay, yeah, if you post this, et cetera, there will be repercussions, and going through firms to essentially implement that. Singapore passed the Protection from Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act, the POFMA, also known as the Fake News Law, which has very clearly essentially said, okay, yeah, fake statements on social media can be prosecuted. And this is probably the more general trend we're seeing across large numbers of countries, is empowering the executive, is empowering government to directly intervene when speech is found to be not necessarily in keeping with what's desirable according to politics or the government of the day. So where do we go? What's the solution? What's the main takeaway here from today? The solution essentially is one of co-regulation and technology. And if there's one phrase, one sentence, one word from today's talk that I hope people take away, it is that question of co-regulation. Rather than thinking of regulation of social media as something simply done by government, that it is a government zone entirely, it's necessary to begin to recognize that it's more an area where government plays a role. However, the bulk of the work is done by other stakeholders. And these regulations are developed in tandem with the private sector, are developed in tandem with scholars, with researchers, with academics, et cetera. What we ultimately need, and what we're beginning to see in a few countries and in Southeast Asia where this discussion is going, is the ultimate need for more data, a focus primarily, or at least initially, on very large online platforms, or VLOPs. And increasingly, we're seeing the European Union Digital Services Act as the focal point of discussion. Europe has taken the lead on this. Europe is the first out of the gate. We are seeing legislation coming out of California, all on these same lines, but Europe's the first mover. And the DSA has become something of a model of co-regulation. And that approach, as opposed to a straight top-down government-only approach, is able to be quite a bit more effective in actually achieving outcomes of achieving protection for vulnerable populations, et cetera. Ultimately, the three key components thereof of the European Union DSA: annual risk assessment, codes of conduct, and annual audits. Having platforms, having VSOPs essentially responsible for producing this material, reporting it to a regulator, and then having discussion and dialogue with independent parties on the outside to review and assure that proper procedure is essentially followed. So next steps, where do we go? We're talking about actually moving ahead with social media regulation that is not simply the direct limitation of speech. That is not the possibility of one particular individual saying, I find this offensive, and therefore this is illegal. Because this is a global concern, this is a global trend, is essentially a platform-based approach, is having very large providers begin by having and developing content moderation programs that are very, very clear, that have clear content rules, clear enforcement procedures, clear due process policies, but most importantly, no mandate from the government side as regards the substance of a platform's content rules. That these are developed by the platform itself, and the state, the government, the regulator side engages, but does not specifically demand certain things be taken down, et cetera. Ultimately, this is a story of regulatory, industry, academia, dialogue, collaboration between all sides. Absent that, we consistently see stories of overreach and areas where major negative externalities are ultimately built in. Transparency reporting, ensuring that reports to internal audits of platform content, moderation activity, et cetera, all of this is provided to the regulator, but also to other stakeholders, such that they're aware as to what's going on and they can play a part in this co-regulation process. Finally, the role of regulatory institutions, determining what risks are to be assessed and what data must be provided to assess those risks. This is very different from direct remediation of data or material that someone particularly finds offensive. Rather, it's a question ultimately of saying, here are the risks we see now, here are the new risks we see coming, here is what we're suspecting of seeing moving ahead, and then bringing that into a co-regulatory space and a co-regulatory approach while assuring that that data is available for others. Ultimately, we're talking about the roadmap for digital governance and for governance of social media. What we're looking for and what we're looking at is the question of transparency and co-regulation. Absent that, we do not have veto points, checkpoints against either too much regulation, which can bring, and we have seen, bring significant amounts of backlash. I'm noting because we had tech problems, a little bit of lack of time, I just want to highlight, my focus today was on social media, but I also wanted to note that when we're looking at the question of governance of social media, we're looking at this not just in Southeast Asia, we're no longer looking at this entirely from a national perspective. We're looking at this from the perspective of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. We're looking at this from the membership of all of these countries in a wide range of trade agreements. Whether it's RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, whether it's the CPTPP, the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, the World Trade Organization's Joint Statement Initiative, the US government's Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, and increasingly and very excitingly as well, new digital economy partnership agreements, Chile, Singapore, New Zealand. So moving beyond social media and looking at broader questions, one more slide. Broader questions, ultimately, digital governance as a whole is not something that is going to simply be settled at the national level. It is something that is going to be settled very much at the multilateral level with a broad range of competing multilateral initiatives. Now, here in Mongolia, Mongolia is not a member of RCEP. Mongolia is not a member of CPTPP. Mongolia is a member of the World Trade Organization's JSI. And again, noting the time, I'll skip through a bit because I want to make sure I don't take away time from the panel discussion. That ultimately, this is, despite the failures of the Doha round of WTO, this is moving forward to actually come to an agreement on e-commerce, on cybersecurity among the 87 or so participating nations. At the same time, RCEP and CPTPP, even though here in Mongolia, not active in these two entities, but your trading partners are. The region is. And as these develop out, particularly RCEP, initially, because it has a relatively lower standard, the agreements, and RCEP is a very standard Association of Southeast Asian Nations initiative in that it builds and builds and builds over time. It's designed for gradual change, gradual augmentation. These standards will become the rules for those countries that are members. And it is highly, and the spillover effects will be significant to countries that engage with those states as trading partners. So paying attention to RCEP and CPTPP, even though not necessarily part of it, is something that's going to become necessary. WTO, as it moves forward, looking at very high probability of success in the next 1 to 2 years, is something that we know is coming and is going to very much frame how domestic legislation moves forward, et cetera. So let me just halt there essentially because I've gone over time. I apologize for that. Very much looking forward to our panel discussion where we have a chance to get into a little bit more of this and hopefully questions of co-regulation, transparency, and global multilateral governance of these issues we'll be able to get into in a little bit more detail. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for bearing with our small tech problems.
Well, thank you very much, Bradley, for that informative presentation. Co-regulation and transparency. We'll go into more details of that soon during panel conversation. Now, I would like to invite all the panelists and speakers and our AmCham leadership and U.S. Ambassador join on the stage for photo session real quick. U.S. Ambassador needs to leave sometime soon, so we want to make sure that we include him in the photo session. So thank you. Please welcome all the panelists, moderators, and Mango Tango members all join on the stage for the photo session, please. Okay, there you are. The conference is over. Thank you for joining. So this is now actually a more exciting time. I would say that we did really find and the presentation by Bradley very interesting, but I would like to invite now our peer AmChams in Asia. We have several people online, and I would like to welcome them. First, Mrs. Tia Komisivantas, Director of Government Relations, AmCham Indonesia. And we have also Mr. Ming Shen. I am Policy Advocacy Manager, AmCham Cambodia. We have several observers from Mr. Danny Kua, Executive Director, AmCham Myanmar. And we have also several people from, few people from Digital Asia Accelerator, David Staley, Episada, Sowansok, Kroch, Panita, Klang Prayon. And we have some members from Thailand, Bricham of Thailand also. So can you guys hear me okay? Awesome. So let me just be more comfortable here. So thank you for joining, first of all, really appreciate it. And I would like to maybe just have some short greetings before we go into the actual conversations. So how about we start the ladies first, and Mrs. Tia Komisivantas, maybe you can introduce about your AmCham and your work a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Hey, good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, we can't hear you well, so just wait for a second and let's repeat that again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah, great.
Yeah, okay. I'll try to speak louder. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for AmCham Mongolia and also Mango Tango for inviting AmCham Indonesia to be part of the discussion. I guess I learned a lot actually from the first two keynote speech about the policy landscape under digital economic in Southeast Asia. So maybe a brief introduction about me. My name is Dia Kusamani.
Sorry, excuse me, Mrs. Dia. Some reason the sound doesn't sound well. Can you guys hear okay? Is okay? It's a little bit problematic, or you guys can hear okay? Okay, you can hear okay. I guess I'm the only the problem. Sorry. Okay, go ahead again. Sorry for interruption.
Okay, thank you. So just a brief introductions about AmCham Indonesia. So we are one of among one of the largest, and I believe is one of the most active foreign chambers in Indonesia. We have more than, I think, around 300 companies across sectors, agriculture, mining, and some related to digital economy like ICT, financial services, and etc. We in our activities, we are focusing on both to provide platform for networking among the American companies, but also for the last couple of years, we're trying to be more active in terms of the policy advocacy, because we sense that there's a growing needs to engage with the government, with the policymaker to shape a good regulatory practices, especially in the digital economy. This is kind of like a new development from everyone's still trying to understand the development itself. So we are trying to hand in hand with the government to seize the momentum of the potential development in the digital economy. So one of the most active committee that we have is actually the ICT committee. I can maybe explain later on why ICT has become one of the most active committee in our organization. Is partly because the rapid growth in the digital economy, especially Indonesia. So I'll stop there. Maybe we can turn to our colleagues from Cambodia, and we can talk more about what the policy landscape in Indonesia later on.
Okay, thank you so much. Hey, Minshen, how are you? Good to see you.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So, greeting from Cambodia to Mipsu. So, my name is Minshen. I am a policy advocacy manager of AmCham Cambodia. I'm very excited to be here today, virtually, of course, to have an opportunity to share my thought on this important topic. So, about AmCham Cambodia, we have roughly around 250 companies as of June, and we do have a committee, advocacy committee. Also, ICT committee is one of the committee that we working on the digital. And recently, we just have a courtesy call with His Excellency Chief Mandate, Ministers of Telecom, Post and Telecom in Cambodia. We do have a brief about what is going on in the digital space, and AmCham. Also, AmCham Cambodia provide input and share experience, best practices, yes, in towards the Ministries of Post and Telecom. So I think my introduction is all here, so we're gonna have a good talk later on. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Minshen. Thank you, first of all, actually hosting us in Cambodia when we had the USAT project, and we had an event there that was really nice. So I guess we have on the line also the Myanmar, AmCham in Myanmar as well, because of the security and then the coup situation over there. They can't really comment on the current situation, but we have them as observers. We have also other people from Digital Asia Accelerators observers as well. I would like to ask a few questions. First, my question to Minshen is in Cambodia. What's the current state in digital transformation economy in your country? What kind of programs is your country currently running to expedite the digital transformation?
So thank you for the question. Really an interesting question here. Cambodia is currently at the midst of the digital transformation. So the country really rapidly develop its digital economies and digital infrastructure. So internet penetration in Cambodia has increasingly significant in recent years. So roughly around 16 million people, 100% of our population are now using internet. These represent around 98% of the total population, up from the 0.1 in 2005. So the gap already 5 compared to the last almost 2 decades of the increasing. And mobile phone usage also widespread in Cambodia with more than 20 million mobile phone usage. So it's more than the population because one person can hold around 2 the SIM card. So these have driven to the growth of the mobile banking and another mobile services. And also digital infrastructure, Cambodian government has heavily developing its infrastructure, including fiber optic and mobile broadband services. So this can help to improve the connectivity throughout the country and also can create more attractive environment for the tech company. And also we can see in the startup scene, also more growing with the number of successful startup emerging in recent years. Also because Cambodian government also have support them in some way, for example, in tax incentive for the tax company and also funding program for the startup. So the government actually created, I mentioned 3 important initiatives. One is the Combined Enterprise, and they chose startup. We focus on supporting startup tax company. Another one also SME bank. We support financially to those involved in SME, mostly in the tax sector. And yeah, I think I'm gonna stop here and give back to you. Yes.
Thank you, Minshen. Thank you very much. Just one follow-up question is Cambodia, when I visited there in March, I saw that Cambodia has a digital, like a country strategy for digital policy and digital roadmap. Do you have some information on that one? What are the key components of the country strategy, and what are you aspiring to do or to reach?
So there's 2 policy roadmap. One is the digital government. So another one is digital economic policy. These 2 policies under different ministries. The digital government is under the ministries of Post and Telecom, and digital economic is under the ministries of finance. So it's actually intertwined between those policy, and this master plan is to contribute to the develop the digital economic, which includes initiative to improve. First of all, the important one is the digital infrastructure, like I mentioned, also promoting digital skill training and support the growth of startup and entrepreneurship. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Minshen. I'll go back to now Mrs. Dia. So my question is kind of similar. What's the, Indonesia, AmCham Indonesia has a strong ICT committee and also very active AmCham in Asia. And so what's the current state in your digital economy in your country, transformation-wise? Any key policies that you would like to point out for your country?
Yeah, thank you, Jack. I guess thank you for the question. So Indonesia is one of the, the 4th largest country in the world in terms of population. We have around 280 million people right now. So it's kind of like, and they are experiencing a demographic bonus as well as the rising middle class. So that's kind of like, like endowment research for the development of digital economy. So currently in Indonesia, I think similar with other ASEAN countries, including Cambodia, we are experiencing a rapid growth in terms of the digital economy. And according to one of the studies, we are expected to be one of the largest digital economy in the Southeast Asia. In 2017, I guess the economic value is reached around 70 billion and expected to be doubling up in the next couple of years. So there is a lot of potential coming from the demographic bonus, as well as the rising middle income class, as well as the adoption of technology. Similar to Cambodia, internet penetration is quite fast here. I think half of the population, Cambodia saying that I think 60 million people are the internet user. Us in Indonesia is triple. We have around 170 million people are actually active using the social media. It's because of the internet penetration and smartphone adoption across the regions, even though in the small, in the remote area. However, we've seen that so this kind of development actually it's also have kind of like a double-edged sword. So we can see the bad consequences because we also there is a lot of potential. First, in terms of the business, so we've seen a lot of big development in the e-commerce supported by the the adoption of the technology. We have a major player like Tokopedia, Shopee, also Lazada, who offering e-commerce platform that offering wide range of product and services across the country. And we also see development in the financial fintech development, as well as a lot of startup actually in Indonesia. On the other hand, we also see the challenges. The first is because Indonesia is archipelago country. We have 1,000 islands. We also a lot of have a remote areas. So access to digital infrastructure is also kind of like a challenge that government currently is trying to narrowing the gap between the major cities and also the rural area. The second one is also when we're talking about it's also come with the lack of some of the needs of awareness on the digital privacy, digital literacy is also because we've seen a lot of in the social media, and we also trying to anticipate this because this is a political year when a lot of people actually using social media, like to spread the false information, hoax, hate speech. So those kind of we come with the challenges. So what the government doing right now is about to set a regulatory framework that actually trying to regulate to make a better conducive environment for the growth of digital economy through first boosting the digital infrastructure, but also on the regulatory side, they also, for instance, they currently having a new regulation on the content moderation that's kind of like helping to reduce the negative side of using the social media.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Dea. And just another follow-up question for Indonesia is that I understood that Indonesian government currently imposing tax on digital goods, whether you download any digital app or whatever, they're trying to impose tax. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I think at the regional, at the international level right now, currently there has been a moratorium on intangible goods. However, I think it has been publicly known that Indonesia is one of another, I think among the countries together with India and also South Africa, who actually wants to impose the taxes or duties in the digital goods. This is something that we work together with the government, basically, with the current a lot of untapped potential with digital economy and a lot of transformation from physical goods and digital goods. Just want to ensure that the government putting the right policy that from our perspective that imposing the newest regulation is basically that trying to impose the custom obligations, custom administration on digital goods that we've seen. It's difficult to implement for a couple aspects. The first one is about what is the definition of a digital goods, and the second, how they implement that. So we are in active discussion with the government. So this is part of our advocacy process. We work together with I think around 20 or 24 international associations, providing input and also dialogue with the government to help them to understand the current situations.
Okay, thank you. So from your AmCham Indonesia, any particular policy advocacy actions are you taking on this? What's the actual basis for this imposing these taxes?
So you mean related to digital goods?
Yeah, digital goods, yeah. What's the actual basis for it, for tax imposing?
Yeah, so we've seen that because currently the government has already, we've seen the trend that the government is actually preparing some of the regulatory framework to be ready to impose duties or tax in the digital goods. So once the moratorium collapses, this is one of the government objective to collect more revenue from the digital goods, as well as they see, one of the argument is basically they also want to have room for the fiscal policy from their side. However, we've seen in our advocacy is that, again, come back with what is the definition of digital goods is not being well defined in the regulation. That's for from our understanding, and so a lot of create confusion among our members, among the industry. Am I subject to digital goods? And if I imported, for instance, like software, I buy a laptop with the software installed, am I subject to this regulation? So there's a lot of actually more. I think we are in the stage of seeking more clarity, and without any clarity is actually put a very disproportional burden for industry, especially because this also may apply to all the sides of the sales of business. And we've seen that with the digital economy, actually a lot of SMEs, small medium enterprise, are the digital technology enabling them, using the software is enabling them to boost to grow their business, right? So we are taking the momentum. They actually need some of policy to support them. However, it may undermine their growth and their opportunity.
Thank you. One last question for Ming-Sheng. Ming-Sheng, you probably heard about the Mongolian government for right reasons. There were some concerns about children's safety on digital platforms and misinformation and all this. For those reasons, Mongolian government enacted laws on social media, protecting human rights on social media. And of course, there have been a lot of opposition to this. What your Cambodia, is there any particular concern like this? Any legislation on social media? How can Cambodia doing like without infringement of freedom of speech and free expression of one's view? Any particular issue there? Because we heard after Mongolia's law was banned, there was another attempt in Kazakhstan, also failed because they also removed that law again. So there seemed to be some emerging trend, and I would like to hear about Cambodia.
So thank you again. So Cambodia in 2020, Cambodia government enacted a sub-degree called National Internet Gateway. So it many concern about this sub-degree, but the government put it on hold until now. So they not implement it yet. So the main concern of the sub-degree National Internet Gateway is it just like it have a power like kill switch of the internet. So it can be the censorship and content control. So it can be used to filter, block online content. We can restrict the freedom of expression and access to information. So the critic argued that it can be used by the government or some sort to censor political dissent or instead stiff the free speech. Also, it can be concerned on the privacy violation, like you mentioned, is what is happening in Mongolia. The sub-degree that have been enacted in 2020 also can be used to monitor online activity and track user behavior, potentially violate the privacy right. So this also concern about how this can be used to monitor, to store the data of people, and government regularly want the data, the data center established more in Cambodia. So they have right to request for the internet service provider to ask for information, even block the website if they consider those websites some we get a public risk or some sort. They deem create a chaos inside the violence. Even it's also the cybersecurity in the sub-degree. It can be create a centralized point of the control of the internet traffic. Like I mentioned, it's like the kill switch of the internet. So we can make a target for the cyber attackers. And this can lead to security breaches and data leak, potentially compromise sensitive information. Also, that also can have a negative impact on the economic. It can have a particularly business, so rely mostly on the internet. Well, the whole population using the internet right now, and the business run mostly online and very e-commerce very booming. Fintech also rapidly grow in Cambodia, so it can be problematic. But I do have some because legislating social media can be a complex task, and particularly when it comes to balancing the need to protect free speech and expression with the need to regulate harmful content. So Cambodian, it can be both sides. That can be the most important thing is transparency. So any legislation related to social media or internet should be transparent and clearly communicate to the general public. So this includes the providing information on what type of content are prohibited and how enforcement will be carried out. So this also, it should be a clear definition and explanation after the content, the law has been enacted, been implementation. So it should be clear defined what constitutes the harmful content, hate speech, or even type of the prohibited content that can be, the government deem inside violent or general chaos. So they also need the independent oversight to create a mechanism to ensure that the enforcement is carried out fairly and impartially, and it can prevent the abuse of power and ensure the free speech is protected. And also they need the public consultation, all the stakeholder, all the way from different stakeholder from the government, so NGO, general public, business communities, all heard, and all their voice and concern should be taken into account. And this can help ensure that the legislation, all the things before the implementation, even before they enacted, and it can to address concern and need for all citizens of Cambodia. And the last thing that I mentioned is international best practices. That's why we have such conference in Mongolia and happening in Cambodia. So we can look into the international best practices for the guidance on how to regulate the social media and internet while protecting the free speech and expression. This can be include the initiative by NGOs such as the United Nations. We have development guidelines for regulating hate speech and another type of harmful content. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Min Shen. Thank you, Mrs. Tia. Really appreciate it. Let us give them a round of applause. Thank you for joining today and really appreciate it. Hope to see you again someday. And
Yes.
thank you very much for taking your time. Really appreciate it. Okay, talk to you later. And then please continue through Zoom attending our economy forum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now I would like to invite our panelists for the panel discussion, challenges, opportunities for digital policy, legislative environment, social network, cybersecurity. I would like to ask advisor of the Ministry of Digital Development and Communication, Mr. Tingis, to the stage, and Mr. Bradley J. Murg, the Paragon International University, Cambodia, Sam Biligmandach, Chief Information Officer, Olymp Bank, and Mr. Stefan Lamorex, Chief Transformation Officer, TDB. Yes, please have a seat. Thank you. So we have a very distinguished panelists here today, and really thank you for your time. We will be speaking bilingually. I will be asking some questions in Mongolian, some questions in English. So you will each have some translation equipment if you need it. It's in the foyer. So thank you guys for joining. So Union эхний асуултыг би do you have Bradley? Do you want the translation equipment? You have it? Oh, okay. Sounds good. Нэгэнт нөгөө цахим хөгжил харилцаа холбооны сайдын зөвлөх тэнгис бас манай уулзалт өнөөдөр оролцож байгаад маш их талархаж байна. За бид нар энэ одоо цахим чуулганыг бол бас энэ жил 2 дахь зохион байгуулж байгаа. Өмнөх жил нь бас болж исэн гэдээ бас хэлсэн байх тий. Тэгэхээр ер нь бол Монгол Улсын засгийн газар за цахим хөгжил харилцаа холбооны яам учрал сайдаар манлайлуулан маш олон чухал ажлыг бас хийж байгаа. Тэгээ ялангуяа Mongolia, за бизнес сегмент гэдэг ингээ ярил маш олон чухал одоо ажлуудыг хийж Монгол улсын цахим хөгжлийг төрөлдөх тийм ээ ялангуяа хүн суртал одоо авилгын ахуулыг бууруулах мөн хүний оролцоог багасгах аль болохоор одоо төрийн үйлчлэгийг цахимжуулах юм том ажлыг бас ингээд хийгээ явж байгаад бид нар онцгойлон талархал илэрхийлье юуны өмнө тийм ээ. За тэгээд яг өнөөдрийн бас Монгол улсын цахим эдийн засгийн хөгжил цахим бодлогын өнөөгийн байдлын талаар бас та товчхон хуваалцаач гэж урьж байна таныг. Монголоор хариулаад явчих тий.
Юуны өмнө энэ арга хэмжээг зохион байгуулж байгаа бас та бүхэнд баярлалаа.
Бас яг жоохон чанга яриараа тий. За.
Энэ арга хэмжээг зохион байгуулж байгаа танай хамт олонд бас талархлаа илэрхийлэх нь зүйтэй байх. Тэгээд бас одоо яг цагаа олсон бас арга хэмжээ гэж хэлж болно. Ягаад тэгэхээр энэ жил ялангуяа өнгөрсөн 7 хоногт зохион байгуулагдсан ICT Expo 2023 уламжлалт арга хэмжээний маань гол сэдэв болвол дижитал экономи буюу цахим эдийн засгийн хөгжил гэдэг тийм сэдвтэй болсон. За ICT Expo-гийн хүрээнд бид нэр энэ жил арай өргөн хүрээнд бүс нутгийн болон олон улсын байгууллагын хамтын ажиллагаанд тулгуурлана. Яг тэгэхээр дижитал орчин өөрөө хэл хязгааргүй. Энд бол ямар нэг улс орны ийм орны хэл тэр орны зааг гэж байхгүй учраас бид нэр дижитал эдийн засгийг бол дангаар хөгжүүлэхгүй. Илүү нөгөө бүс нутгийн болон бүх улсуудын хамтын ажиллагаа. За олон улсын байгууллагуудын бас хамтын ажиллагааны хүрээнд бол энэ илүү одоо оновчтой, тогтвортой бас зөв хэрэгжнэ гэдэг үндсэн дээр ийм одоо арга хэмжээг зохион байгуулсан. Арга хэмжээ бол бас нэлээд амжилттай бас болж өнгөрсөн болохыг бас хэлэх зүг баха. Тэгээд Монгол улс бол та бүхний ихэнх нь одоо мэдж байгаа, бид бүгд мэдж байгаа. Уулуурхад түшгэлсэн одоо зарим орнуудын хэвлэл мэдээллээр бол Mongolia гэж одоо нэрлэгдэж байгаа. За энэ нөхцөл байдлыг бол бид нэр бас өөрчлөх тийм дунд хугацааны зорилтыг Монгол улсын засгийн газраас бас дэвшүүлээд ажиллаж байгаа. Өөрөөр хэлбэл бид нэр дараагийн 10 жилд алсын хараа 25 хөгжлийн бодлогын урт хугацааны бодлогын баримтчгийн одоо зорилтуудыг хүрэхийн тулд бид нэр дижитал технологи, мэдээллийн технологийн олд ажилтныг салбар бүрт нэвтрүүлж яаж одоо тэрнийх үр дүн үүсгэх гэдэг дээр тэр дунд хугацааны бас тийм бодлого гаргахаар бас яг одоо ажиллаж байна.
За та тэгэхээр сая ICT Expo-ны талаар бас танилцууллаа. Ер нь яг энэ одоо арга хэмжээ маань бас сүүлийн хэдэн жил бас ингээд явагдаж байгаа. Тэгэхээр энэ ICT Expo болон одоо инновацийн 7 хоногийн бас тэ үр дүнгийн талаар та бас товчхон ер нь ямар үр дүн гарав тийм ээ, тодорхой бодиттой ямар үр дүнгууд байв, энэ талаар бас товчхон холцгоо.
За энэ жилийн ICT Expo бас хэд хэдэн онцлогтой байгаа. Сая бас та дурдлаа. Хуучин инновацийн 7 хоног гэж болдог байсан. Мэдээлэл технологи ICT Expo гэж болдог байсныг бас одоо ойролцоо ижил төстэй арга хэмжээ. За инновацгүйгээр мэдээллийн технологи гэж байхгүй. Инновацийн салбарт өөрөө мэдээллийн технологи нөлөө их байгаа учраас энэ хоёр арга хэмжээг энэ жил хамтран зохион байгуулж байгаа. За Innovik буюу ICT Expo 2023 арга хэмжээ маань өөрөө 7 хоногийн хугацаанд үргэлжилсэн. За энэ 7 хоног бол тэр чигтээ их олон арга хэмжээ болсон. За өөрөөр хэлбэл 6 сарын 7-оос эхлээд e-readiness assessment буюу Монгол улсын цахим худалдааны бэлэн байдлын үнэлгээг одоо бид нэр нүүбийн хөгжлийн баг хурлын ангататтай хамтарч хийснийхээ үр дүнг танилцуулсан. Ангататын үнэлгээ хийсэн бид нэр за миний санаж байгаа 33 дугаар болж байна. Нүүбийн тийм. Энэ үнэлгээ гарснаар бид нэр зөвхөн цахим худалдааны бэлэн байдлыг үнэлээ зогсохгүй, цахим худалдаа гэсэн учраас цаана дижитал эдийн засгийг бүтээхэд шаардлагатай давуу боловсрол талаа мэдэж авч. За дараагийн нэг арга хэмжээ бол 6 сарын 8-ны өдөр ICT Expo форум буюу одоо хилцүүлгийн мэрэгжлийн хүмүүсийн одоо хилцүүлгийн арга хэмжээ болсон. За хилцүүлгийн арга хэмжээ бол яг энэ танхимд 3 танхим зэрэг хийж байгаа. Зэрэг хийхдээ нэгдүгээрт нь яг салбарын өөрийнх нь хөгжлийн бодлого, салбар хаашаа яаж өгч, 5G технологи яаж эзрэх, кибер аюулгүй байдлыг бид нар цаашаа яаж авч явах гэдэг дээр хилцүүлэг хийж байгаа. Дараа нь бол боловсрол, эрүүл мэнд, аюул жуулчлал гэсэн бусад эдийн засгийн салбаруудад мэдээллийн технологи яаж үр дүнгээ өгч байгаа, өгөх ёстой талаар бас бид нэр хилцэж байгаа. За тэгээ 3 дугаар хэсгээр нь одоо энэ бид түрүү хэлсэн нэг олон улсын байгууллагуудтай хамтан ажиллаж чухал гэсэн учраас олон улсын байгууллагуудын одоо оролцоотой 3 дахь хилцүүлэг бас болж өнгөрсөн. Өөрөөр хэлбэл бүх талууд нэгэн зэрэг асуудлаа хэлцэж шийдвэрлэж ирсэн. За мөн Монгол улсын захирал шилжилтийг сүүлийн үед бүс нутгийн орнууд маш их сонирч. Саяхан бас Камбож, Лаос, Тажикстан зэрэг улсын төлөөлөгчнөр одоо Швейцарын хөгжлийн агентлагийн тусламжтайгаар Монгол улсыг зориулж ирж захирал шилжилтийн бас туршлагыг судлаад ирсэн тийм. За мөн Экспогийн хүрээнд Global Digital Dialogue гэдэг энэ жил 2 дахь удаа зохион байгуулж байгаа нэгдсэн үндэсний байгууллагын бас төлөөлөгчийн газраас зохион байгуулаад бас энэ захирал шилжилтийн үр дүнг бүс нутгийн орнуудад танилцуулдаг юм арга хэмжээг бас амжилттай зохион байгуулсан байна. За мөн ICT Expo-г хүрээд Ministerial Meeting буюу High Level Officials Meeting болсон. За тодорхой улсуудын цахим одоо хөгжлийн сайд нар, за олон улсын байгууллагын бүс нутгийн одоо дарга төлөөлөгчнөр бас оролцоод бас энэ бүс нутгийн хэмжээнд яаж бид нэр хамтарч ажиллах вэ гэдэг дээр бас тийм ярилцаа одоо хэлэлцээр хийсэн байгаа. За тоон дүнгээр бид нэр Expo-ныхаа үр дүн гэдэг бас хэмжиж үзсэн. Одоо байн болдог арга хэмжээнүүдийг бид нэр үр дүнгийн нэг хэмжигдэхүйц байдлаар хэмжиж жил зориод бас энэ тоон зөвлөлтүүд гаргасныг бас та бүхэд дуулгахад бас зүг байх. За юуны өмнө яг одоо Expo-гийн хүрээнд бид нэр 41 сая $40 гэрээ хилцэл бол баталгаажсан байгаа. Яг форум үеэр 41 сая $40. За 6.9 тэрбум төгрөгийн одоо экспортын гэрээ хилцэл хийсэн. Энэ экспорт шүү тийм дотоодын гэрээ хилцэл шүү. Одоо өөрөөр хэлбэл олон улсын хэмжээнд экспорт зохион байгуулснаар манай дотоодын одоо Монголын компаниудын бүтээгдэхүүн үйлчлэгийг одоо экспортлохоор одоо ийм хэмжээний хилцэл хийсэн байна. За 4.8 тэрбум төгрөгийн шууд борлуулалтыг экспорт оролцсон байгууллагууд маань бас хийсэн. За тэгээд 150 одоо орчим гадаад дотоодын зөрч төлөөлөгчд бол ирсэн байна. Давхартаагүй тоогоо 31-2 орчим орны элчин сайд төлөөлөгчийн газар хамтдаа оролцсон. За нийтдээ 185 мянган хүн одоо экспорт давхцаагүй тоогоор оролцсон байна гэсэн ийм тоо гарч байгаа.
За тэгэхээр тэр экспорт гэдэг нь яг юу хэлж илаа? Экспорт гэхээр ямар бүтээгдэхүүнийг экспортлох одоо янз бүрийн юунууд байна уу? Энэ талаар дэлгэрэнгүй хэлвэл.
За мэдээллийн технологийн бүтээгдэхүүн үйлчилгээ.
Аха.
Одоо жишээлбэл яг нарийн одоо нэг байгууллагуудын бас нэг бизнесийн нэг хандлагч бас яг энэ байгууллагт ийм одоо бүтээгдэхүүн за одоо бодлосон гэж хэлэх хэцүү байна. Яг зүгээр одоо клауд хэлбэрт суурилсан мэдээллийн технологийн сервисийн үйлчилгээнүүд нэлээд гол байсуртай байсан гэж хэлж байна.
So, sorry that I'm gonna just go in deeper into this real quick. One more question, and then I'll get you guys soon. Okay. Тэгэхээр яг энэ яамны хувьд ойрын томоохон одоо зорилтууд нь юу байгаа юм? Яг одоо цахим хөгжлийн яам сая бас хэлж байгаа шиг байнгын орооны хурал болж байна гэж байгаа шиг байна. Яг ямар одоо ойрын томоохон зорилтууд ер нь тавьсан байгаа юм? Тийм ээ. Одоо 1 жилийн дотор гэдэг юм уу, 2 жилийн дотор гэдэг юм уу, тийм ээ?
За түрүү бас дурдсан тэр нөгөө засгийн газраас өөрөө захим шилжилт дижитал эдийн засгийг бас өндөр хэмжээнд авч үзэж байгаа учраас дунд хугацааны тийм бодлогын чиглэл баримт чиглэл боловсруулахаар ажиллаж байгаа. Энэ бол энэ жилдээ багтаад төлөвлөгөө нь гарч болох гэж харж байгаа. За дээрэс нь бид нэр бас яг өнөөдөр байнгаар бол яг байнга болдгол арга хэмжээ нөгөө захим шилжилтийн талаар төсөлбөрийг хэлэлцэж байгаа. За мөн ойрын хугацаанд хийж хэрэгжүүлэх арга хэмжээ гэвэл бас та бүхэн мэдээлэлтэй байгаа бах. Салбар болгоны харилцааг зохицуулсан 120 орчим хуулинд бид нэр захим шилжилтийг дэмжсэн одоо заалтуудыг шингээж өгсөн тийм зохицуулт хийж
120 хууль гэсэн үү тийм
120 хууль.
За
Монгол улсад одоо яг хүчин төгөлдөр байнгын үйлчлэгээтэй 430 орчим хууль байдаг. 430 орчим. За энэ хуулиас төрийн үйлчлэгтэй холбоотой иргэн хуулийн этгээдээс төртэй харилцаж байгаа харилцаатай холбоотой буюу одоо төрийн үйлчлэгээ захимжуулах боломжтой 120 хууль байгаа. Энэ 120 хуулийг одоо захимжуулах гэх юм одоо захим шилжилтийг шингээх яг энэ ажлыг яг одоо засаг хурлаар хэлцэж байгаа. Эх 7 хоногт анхны хэлцүүлэг хийнэ гэж ойлгосон. Тэгэхээр энэ хаврын чуулгандаа багтаад бас хууль маань батлагдаад маш олон салбарт одоо захим шилжилтийг шингээхээр бас төлөвлөж ажиллаж байгаа.
За баярлалаа. So my next question is to Stefan. It was really wonderful to have a lunch today and got to know each other. Really appreciate that. And as a seasoned businessman, especially working in banking and ICT and also fintech areas, what do you see like in terms of how can we overcoming challenges in cybersecurity, protection of data privacy? And you can also mention about your TTB is working on becoming digital bank and a lot of challenges ahead you mentioned earlier. So what are the opportunities? And we know that now social media and data protection is very important and a lot of incidents are happening and so forth. So how do you see, how can we overcome these challenges?
Thank you. I'll start by saying that Bradley kind of killed my my vibe because he talked about co-regulation. So the way I see it is exactly that. It's co-regulation. For cybersecurity, at the end of the day, if you look at it, cyber risk, I mean, this is an organization. There is a multi-billion-dollar business on cyber threat and cyber business. So for us to be able to, I would say, follow or even be in front of them, the only way to do this is through partnerships. So between governments and private sector and outside association, it's the only way. And if I look at how to best implement defense, it's at I would say a two-speed train, basically. So we have one-speed train, which is basically the research and development. You work with your partners and you continuously implement and continuously add new technology, new ways of working, and new process and procedures around it, of course. And your other one is the actual area where you implement and you keep these laws up to date. It's a never-ending cycle. So, and just like digital transformation, it's not transformation, it's business as usual. So, you know, it's continuous. We are going to be doing this for decades and decades on end. This is what we do. I will do this until I have no more hair. That will be my life. So as far as how the private sector does it, that again, it's a lot about co-regulation. There's a lot that the government can help us with, and vice versa. We can help the government. But we also have to look at government to government. So there's like Mongolia, of course, works with the US, but there's multiple other countries that we can work with. I was in Myanmar before, and we did the same with Israel. So there's government to government work that can be done so that you're not reinventing the wheel. And there's multiple policies that are already implemented elsewhere in the world. If we look at Europe, they've got GDPR. There's no reason why we need to reinvent the wheel. Yes, it needs to be regionalized, it needs to be localized to Mongolia, but that kind of legislation has a lot of strength, a lot of stability, so it can be used and aligned to Mongolia specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing when we talk about social media and we talk about regulating social media. Like Brad said before, you have two ways of doing it. Either you pull the plug and they'll find another way out, or you work with them, you make sure that the population participates and that they actually have their say into how it's being built and how it's being legislated, which is a better way of doing it, because then you have the support of the population.
Yep, thank you. Just follow up again for Stefan, is that I guess you mentioned about private sector and government work together, and what will be the best way to work together to shape the most efficient and effective digital policy? Because we would like to see, as AmCham Mongolia, private sector-led economic growth. And we usually see is government involvement sometimes can be retroactive, meaning that it could be obstacles sometimes, and very slow in terms of efficiency and transparency, lack of transparency, and so forth. So, from your experience working in different countries, Myanmar and Thailand and other countries, what would you say? What's the best way?
Well, the ways I've seen that actually works is, I'm repeating myself a little bit, but it really is about partnerships between the government and the private sector. There are definitely areas where we can help the government speed up process. Yes, there's a lot more, I would say, red tape at the government level than there will be in the private sector, which is normal. But there's definitely areas where, public-private partnerships definitely help the government in pushing new legislation, but also just new technology, whether it's outsourced to a local player, or it's outsourced to an outside player, or even another government that we have a partnership with. These speed up the implementation of these legislations.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm going to go to Sam Billig, and the background on the law on social media and all this whole exercise, the background. So what would you say the key lessons learned from this exercise? Meaning that the law on social media, and it's been very controversial and a lot of public opposition, and finally now maybe government reviewing it, this policy maybe. So what can we learn from this?
Yeah, I think that's the Mongolia is a democratic country, which means like the many people, especially about younger generations, don't like to have any kind of restriction in Mongolia. And in Mongolia, it's the average, the active user means like the 28 years old, which means very young age. And also the 30 years after the communism, there were so many open things happened in Mongolia. And because of this one, when there is a law that regulations that coming to the younger generation, it was totally not possible to acceptable. But of course, there is another side that there might be if there is this kind of regulation or restriction, it will help in terms of the future democracy. This kind of the conversation happened in there. So I think it was very difficult to receive, especially about those public sector, especially about the younger generation. So from my point of view, it should be from the beginning about the culture, because we see that the digital transformation, digital economy, which means a totally different business model, totally different the governance, totally different ethics. And we talk about much about the information security, but we don't talk about the ethics in social. And if we give that kind of the training or that kind of the experience, that kind of the like any kind of the possibility to learn from the beginning, especially about maybe the high school, maybe kindergarten, to see how we act in social network, how we should act in digital economy, how we should act even for the metaverse. So from my point of view, we should start from this point of view in order to get a good result. One of the advantage of Mongolia is like we were like behind many countries many times, but now in digital transformation, we could be in same level. And also another the good advantage is like we are very like the clean. There is nothing much about we talk about, nothing much we have implemented, those kind of things. But now we could like just leapfrog other countries in terms of the ethics, in terms of the culture, in terms of the system, even system-wise, because we didn't have like big legacy systems in there. So those kind of the advantages we have. So that's why we could start from the like the refresh. Even we could be the like benchmark for the some countries, maybe the some developing countries, same as Mongolia. So I could support that way.
Yeah, our sample is actually we're active member of our ICT committee as well, and AmChams, and also been very active during ICT Expo as well, I think. So did you have any particular key takeaways from this year's ICT Expo? Maybe you can share about that. And then secondly, what would you say that key critical issues that needs to be addressed in this sector? I'm meaning like maybe digital banking and also in general digital transformation area. What would you say key areas needs to be tackled right now?
For the first question, for the ICT Expo, it was like many corporation was in there, especially about like non-government organizations for the Mongolian IT sector. There are CIO Club, which is the club non-government organization for the members of the uniting those chief information officers. There are software development community and fintech community and Mongolian Banking Association. All those communities were included in the ICT Expo in order to give the best result, especially about the Mongolian people. We see that the information security in the information technology and digital transformation is not only for IT guys.
Yeah,
it's about the whole sector. So in that case, how we give the good result each sectors. Because of that one, we have included in there, and I think this year's special thing include special items and works tasks included in here. We have organized the workshops, especially for the experts for the IT sector. We have organized some event-based networking. It's especially about those other sectors people, especially about those business people who come in ICT Expo and to get the right information from the right points, and also to visit the right booths. So these things happened. And the third one is there were the information security event, which is directed to the experts. Another one is directed to the public, because we see that especially about Mongolian Banking Association, we see that for information security, first thing that we need to is like the public culture, public training, all those things. So it was included in there. And fourth one is like that we have tried to bring like metaverse and AI, artificial intelligence and big data, those technology that is based on like digital transformation. So based on those four different things are totally different from previous ICT Expo, which is organized 2 years ago. So we see that's the people with the many segments, especially about even they're like the aged, more like elder aged people are coming, and even the children's coming, and younger generation and mid-level generation, all those people come in here and got the right information from the ICT Expo. That's the good point that we included in there. Regarding to the second question, especially about the digital transformation, how we see in here in Mongolia, and Mongolian IT sector experts, they see that's okay, we are doing the many things in here, and we see that's also the only the IT sector might be the like very good opportunity to bring in Mongolia, especially after that to the mining and maybe the agriculture, then IT. Because we have that kind of the culture in Mongolia to be changed very easily, and customers gets the new product and services very easily when we providing them. So this kind of the big advantages we have, but the bad side or disadvantage side is like we don't have much experience, especially about how we should go with the go to the information, because we have the experience and like reports and forums keep talking about the developed countries' digital transformation. But we don't have the experience of that developing countries' experience. So that's the very big tricky situation for us. Then still there is a question about, okay, then we could be that experience, we could be that benchmark, but in order to that, we need to contact with those countries, maybe the Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and South Asian countries, which is in same level in terms of the digital transformation. After that, we could bring maybe the good result, maybe cooperated policy or cooperated standards we could bring. That's also that's the one point. Another part is of course, that's the culture and training and human resource. That part is very difficult situation for Mongolia. I think that it's not only Mongolia, but also other countries, and how we overcome it's also still questions in there. We try to do things that starting from kindergarten, but we don't have much experience. But in other countries, they have experience, but they are totally different. The economy is totally different. The environment is totally different. So it's very difficult to get to copy that one in Mongolia. So that's the second part that I'm thinking.
Thank you, Sambidlik. Appreciate it. My question to Bradley is, can you elaborate more on your the presentation regarding co-regulation and transparency? What do you mean exactly co-regulation, and what are the key aspects in this regard, the legislating social media without infringement of the freedom of speech?
Oh, sure, my pleasure. So when we talk about questions of co-regulation, the essential story is that government will establish rules that firms have to play by in terms of their processes, their procedures, what content is, when there are issues with content, when there are other challenges. However, the main area of enforcement, the main actor in charge of enforcement are ultimately firms themselves. And firms themselves that are then subject to annual audit procedures, filing of annual reports, provision of data, et cetera, that can be that's reviewed by the regulator, and at the same time also made available to vetted civil society actors, scholars, et cetera, such that there's an oversight process that is not simply the government alone, but puts significant responsibility in the hands of the private sector, in addition to other interested parties. And this is vital for a number of reasons. First is, as you note, precisely the question of protection of freedom of speech and preserving an open society and avoiding arbitrary decisions as to what can be allowed and what will be banned. And the first wave of regulation of social media globally has shown that, as I said in the talk, that institutions are sticky. So as we've seen in a number of countries globally, authoritarian regimes will simply go ahead and expand out the existing institutions they have to regulate and control society. So for a country such as China, this is not a hard question. It's simply a matter of expanding the existing governance system of social control that China's very successfully built over the last 25 years. Simply adding new technology and new layers of management. However, for open societies that do value free speech and that do value a genuine private sector that has a role in the country as a whole, and in decision-making process, it's much more difficult. This type of co-regulation becomes fundamentally necessary to prevent state overreach and to ensure that those protections are there. And this is, and I think we're, as this term evolves and develops, we're not going to see a single model of co-regulation that's going to be applicable to all countries and all economic systems. If there's one thing that we know in political economy, it's that institutions cannot simply be transplanted entirely from one country to another, that there is no perfect best practice. It's like doing a kidney transplant. Sometimes the host rejects the kidney. And in the same way with co-regulation, we are going to see different variants evolve, very much based upon the unique dynamics of the local economy. And this is one of the reasons precisely why chambers of commerce and civil society actors need to be active in this area, in creating that process of co-regulation. Because absent that, with their voice not being there, and not being able to elucidate and make clear to policymakers precisely what those interests are and the role they're willing to play and the interests of their firms, they're simply going to be passive spectators who are recipients of regulation. And let's be frank here, recipients of costs that are going to impede them and their interests in the long term.
Great, thank you. Next question is, what role will international cooperation play in shaping policies and practices, especially in areas of data sharing and interoperability?
In this area, I think it's a pretty straightforward story of, and overall in that large multinational firms, I mean, the very, very, very large platforms are the main area of focus. When we look at the European Union legislation that just went into effect in 2022, it makes specific, it singles out companies over a certain size and actually has a list that they continue to add to based upon, okay, this firm does have a significant level of market power, has a significant role in this area. So those firms are engaged with first generally, but they're also those that have then concomitantly the most responsibility, that are under the most specific regulation in terms of how to respond. I think one of the outstanding areas that we haven't seen as much discussion of is the engagement with small and medium-sized enterprises, because so much of the concern on social media was obviously with large-scale platforms, but what we've seen overall globally is that so much large-scale firms, when it comes to how you're going to regulate your digital space or what costs you're going to have, et cetera, don't mind having huge additional burdens put onto all firms in the tech industry. Why? Because, okay, if I'm company X and I'm incredibly large, I have an entire department of government relations sitting there, that's job is to deal with the state. And I've got my lawyers, everything else. Now, if you're a small firm that has to deal with a huge additional burdening regulation or potential cost, you're in trouble because you don't have an entire government affairs department to deal with this. Again, this goes to the question of the vital importance of business organizations and civil society. But finally, the way that it evolves, because we know that there are varieties of capitalism. We know that there are systems where market power, et cetera, is highly concentrated in a small number of firms. We also know that there are others where MSMEs dominate and tend to be and have a much larger share of the market. So we're going to see again differing models in differing states, and it's not going to be a one size fits all for every country.
Thank you, Bradley. I will give another 15 minutes for the audience to ask a question. Otherwise, you might fall asleep. But I will ask one more question from a minister as advisor, and then I'll go into the audience. Okay, so please be prepared. And When you ask questions, please tell us your name and organization you're representing. За тэгэхээр сая Брэдли гэдэг энэ одоо юуны Paragon их сургуулийн бас профессор танилцуулга хийлээ те одоо зөвлөх сонссон баг. Тэгэхээр энэ тал дээр таны бодол юу ямар хөө бас юу төрөв те юу ямар санагдав энэ танилцуулга. За нэгдүгээрт нэг асуулт төр байна. Хоёрдугаарт нь болохоор ер нь одоо нөгөө нийгмийн сүлжээнд хүний эрхийг хамгаалах хуулийн талаар ер нь ямар шинэ мэдээлэл байгаа вэ? Энэ дээр бид нар бас нэлээд төвлөрч ярьж байна тийм ээ. Тэгэхээр энэ дээр бас таны бодлыг бас сонсомоор байна. Ер нь ямар хуу байдлаар бас яам энэ байдалд хандж байгаа вэ? Одоо саяны болсон явдлаас хойш тийм ээ.
Бүр болсон явдал гэдэг нэртэй болсон тийм.
Тийм, ерөөсөө нөгөө хууль маань бид нар эсэргүүцсээр аваад яатсан шүү дээ. Ерөнхийлөгч орог тавилсан шүү дээ. Болсон явдал гэдэг тэрийг л хэлж байгаа.
За яг цахим орчинд цахим орчны хэрэглээний одоо зохицох юм эсвэл гэмтэргийн зорилгоор ашиглах явдалтай тэмцэх бол бүх улс оронд яг адилхан явж байгаа асуудал. Энэ зөвхөн Монгол улс ганцаараа энийг санаачлаад хэрэгжүүлээд явж байгаа юм гэхээр бас үгүй. Ялангуяа манай хууль эрх зүйн тогтолцоо төстэй байдаг Германд бол жишээ энэ хууль чинь 3-4 жил гарсан байдаг. Тэгвэл Германд бас ялгаатай хуулийг бол буцаж татаагүй. Тэгвэл хэрэгжилтэн дээр маш их тийм эргэлзээцээ нөхцөл юунууд үүсэж байгаа. Дайлманууд үүсэж байгаа. Бид нэр Германы бас хэлчинсээ төлөөлөлтөд уулзсан л нэг хуулийнхаа төсөл ер нь бүх улсын байр суурийг сонссон. За ягаад энэ ер нь энэ зохицуулт хэрэг болжсон бэ гэхээр одоо ялангуяа Монгол улсын хувьд та бүхэн бүгдээрээ мэдж байгаа social network нийгмийн сүлжээ бол хүн болгоны амьдралын бүр салшгүй хэсэг болчихсон. Аль хэдийн цахим бодлооны 80% зөвхөн Facebook дээр явж байгаа. Зар сурталчилгааны зах зээл хамгийн том тоглогч болж байна. Монгол улсын иргэдийн 2.4 сая active users интернет хэрэглэгч байхад social media хэрэглэгч яг адилхан 2.4 сая хүн байдаг. За ихэнх бид нар их хэд хэдэн судалгаа хийж үзсэн. Өөрсдийн зүгээс болон олон улсын байгууллагатай хамтраад тэгэхэд судалгаанаас юу харагдаж байна гэхээр ерөөсөө дийлэнх хүмүүсийн хувьд интернет гэдэг бол зөвхөн Facebook. Яг олон сүлжээ байгаа л да. Тэгтээ би нөгөө төгөөмөл багаар дурдчих те. Ихэнх хүмүүсийн хувьд Facebook бол ерөөсөө интернетийг оруулж байгаа. Энэ өөрийн гэсэн сайн талтай, нөгөө талаа бас сул талтай. За юу хэлж байгаа нэхээр Facebook дээр за дахиж нэр захгүй те. Нөгөө нийгмийн сүлжээн дээр явж байгаа үзэл бодол мэдээллийг бол хүмүүс нөгөө шууд итгэж хүлээж авах байдал нь монголчуудын хувьд бол арай өндөр байдаг гэх юм уу. Шууд итгэдэг. Тухайн мэдээллийг үнэн зөв гэдгийг одоо шалгах, нягтлах буюу одоо media literacy үзүүлэлт бас сарцсангуу одоо хөгжиж эхэлж байгаа. Муу гэж хэлэхгүй Монгол улс өөрөө угаасаа л интернет мэдээлэл технологиг одоо сүйд эхэлж байгаа учраас бид нар шинэ хөгжиж өргөсөн. За тэгэхээр энэ нөхцөл байдалд уялдуулаад нөгөө гэмт хэрэг цахим орчны гэмт хэрэг кибер аюулгүй асуудал бас их хорц болж гарч ирсэн. Яагаад энэ хуулийг засгийн газар яаралтай гинт санаач гарч ирэх болсон гэхээр бас нэг шалтгаанууд байдаг. Би бол зөвхөн тэрийг дурдж чадхаар 2020 онд цахим гэмтрийг улмаас учирсан хохирол 900 орчим сая төгрөг байсан баха. Яг ковидын өмнөх жил гэсэн үг. 2020 онд 2021 оны тоог аваад үзэхээр 19 дахин өссөн мэт. Цахим гэмтрийг хохирол 19 дахин өссөн. Энэ дандаа нөгөө одоо бид нар бүгдээр мэдж байгаа нөгөө залилан баггүй. Хүний аккаунтыг эвдэж ороод эсвэл нөгөө хүний одоо өвчтөе зовлонтой гэдэг нэрээр худлаа хандив аваад нөгөө энэ бүгдээр нөгөө сошиал сүлжээг ашиглаад хийгдчихсэн учраас л сошиал сүлжээнд тийг анхаарал тавьсан хэрэг. За нөгөө талаас бас нөгөө бид бүгдийг бас болгоомжлж байгаа харж байгаа бас зөв нөгөө үнэн зөв буруу худлаа мэдээллийг ялгах тэр чадвар бас бидэд хэрэгтэй. Өөрөөр хэлбэл нөгөө freedom of expression буюу чөлөөтэй үзэл бодлыг зэрэглэх тэр эрхчлэл бас халдахгүй байх ёстой. Өөрөөр хэлбэл яг энэ хууль эрх зүйн тогтолцоонд бүх улсуудын анхаарч байгаа, за олон улсын байгууллагуудын анхаарч байгаа тэр үнцэг бол хэрхэн энэ нөгөө үзэл бодлоо илэрхийлэх эрх чөлөө, иргэд хоорондоо харилцааг гэмт хэрэгтнүүд болон одоо тэр бусад зохисгүй зөв бус агуулгаас ялгах уу гэдэг их нарийнхаа тийм одоо дээсэн дөрөвтэй зүүрлж болно. За нэгэнт одоо бүх улс орнд энэ асуудал тулгараад байгаа учраас олон улсын байгууллагууд ялангуяа нүүбэс бас энэ асуудлыг бас анхаарч байгаа юм байна. Өөрөөр хэлбэл саяхан би ийм одоо ЮНЕСКО-гоос цахим орчинд үг хэлэх үзэл бодлыг илэрхийлэх эрх чөлөөний хамтаар цахим орчинд аюул байдлыг хэрхэн хангах вэ гэдэг дээр тийм жишг тийм зохицуулалтын баримт бичгийг ЮНЕСКО гаргахад улс болгоноос санал авч байгаа юм байна. Тэгээд саяхан одоо энэ 7 хоногт манай яам дээр бас энд байгаа оролцогчдын бас зарим нь бас ирсэн байгаа бах. Тийм ус үндэстэн дамсан тийм бодлогын жижиг баримтчийг санал авах гэдээс явж байгаа юм байна.
Зөв. Би сая уучлаарай. Нэг юм хэлэхэд ерөнхийдөө яг мэдээч бидний хувьд бол энэ хуулийг бол гол нь эсэргүүцээгүй яаж батлагдсан процесс тийм ээ. Дээр нь энэс гарах үр дагаврын тухайд гол нь хандаж шилжижсэн байгаа. Тэгэхээр ер нь гол асуудал бол цаашдаа хувийн эрх чөлөөг хязгаарлахгүйгээр яг энэ одоо хүүхдийн эрхийг хамгаалах, цахим халдлагаас сэргийлэх тийм ээ, цахим зарилаанч гэдэг юм энэ зүйлийг хийх тал дээр ер нь бол одоо бодвол шинэ хуулийн төсөл маань бас ингээд санал энэ дээр боловсруулагдаад явж байгаа болов уу гэж бид нар бас тооцоолоод байгаа байхгүй юу. Тэгэхээр энэ дээр яг нөгөө яг энэ олон улсаас одоо хүмүүс өөрж ирээд бид нар бас ярьж байгаа шалтгаан нь яг энийг яг зөв хийгээсэ Монгол улс. Энэ дээр одоо манай худалдааны танхимын зүгээс бас оруулж болох оролцоо одоо contribution гэж хэлэх юм уу те тэр зүйл маань энэ байж болох юм байна. Тэгэхээр энэ талаас гол нь яг ямар таны түрүүн ярьдаг тэр нарийн нюанс гэж ярьж байна тийм ээ. Аль тал руугаа хэлбэхгүйгээр тэр алтан дунд чинь бариад зохицуулах энэ асуудал. Тэгээд яг хөө мэдээж одоо шидтэй түлхүүр байхгүй, шийдэл байхгүй байх л та. Гэхдээ зүгээр танаас мэдээлэл авах зүуднээс гол асууж байгаа зүйл болохоор яг энэ дээр та бүхний цаашдын одоо тухайлах юм бол зарим нэг заалтуудын асуудал байгаад байсан шүү дээ. Одоо ямар нэгэн олон нийтийн замраагүй байдлыг одоо болоод тэрнээс хамбуулах юм бол интернетийн сүлжээг 72 цаг одоо хаадаг ч юм уу яадаг ч юм те. Тэгэхээр тэгээд магадгүй бас иргэдийн зүгээс бол улс төрчид бол ингээд фейсбүүкээр, сошиалаар ингээд буулгадуулахгүй, шүүмжлүүлэхгүй тулд ч гэдэг юм уу тэрнээс болоод энэ хуулийг гаргаж яана гэсэн юм хардлага сэрлэг бол яваад байсан. Тэгэхээр зөвхөн биний сонирхоод байгаа зүйл болохоор бидний хувьд энэ хууль маань ерөнхийдөө дараагийн шатнд алхах шатанд явж байгаа юм бол энэ тал дээр ер нь яамны зүгээс яг юу бод төлөвлөж байгаа юм бол гэдгийг гол нь сонирхож асууж байгаа байхгүй. Тэг яаж гол тэр нюанстай асуудлыг шийдэж байгаа юм болоо гэж.
За энэ дээр яг хоо ерөнхийлөгчийн хориг дээр маш тодорхой дурдсан байгаа. Ерөөсөө илүү урт хугацаанд бодож боловсруулж илүү олон талын санал хүсэлтийг авч тусгаж боловсруулаач л гэсэн баг.
Тийм.
Тодорхой.
Зөв.
За дээрэс нь яг хоо цахим орчинд хүний эрхийг хамгаалах тухай хуулийн одоо тэр зөрчилтэй контентын жагсаалт бол өнөөдөр яг эрүүгийн хууль байдаг зогсоолт тахгүй. Нэг шинэ одоо нөгөө хууль байхгүй. Өөрөөр хэлбэл одоо өөр хуулиар буюу бүр эрүүгийн харилцаа бүхий агуулгыг тархаж олон хүнд тэр нөгөө эрүүгийн хэргийн бүрэлдэхүүн үүсэж гэмтрэг болохоос өмнө арай хурдан арга хэмжээ авах тэр зохицуултыг холжиж өгөхийг бол зорж байна. Тэгэхээр мэдээж одоо бас бидний дэглүүд нарийн ухстай ярих шаардлагатай. За дээрэс нь тэр сүлжээ хязгаарлах гэдэг сая дурддаг чинь сүлжээ хязгаарлах бол бас өмнө нь бас олон нэвтрүүлгээр бас манай яамны төлөөллөөс ярьж байсан. Одоо өнөөдөр сүлжээ хязгаарлах гэдэг асуудал харилцаа холбооны зохицуулах хорноос баталсан журманд байдаг. Өөрөөр хэлбэл тэр журмыг батлах хэм хэмжээ нь бол тухайн байгууллагын дараагаар хэмжигдэж байна. Хуульчлана гэдэг бол нэг талаасаа ингээд харахад аюултай биш бол учир нөгөө талаасаа хууль давах их мэдл хэмтэж байхгүй учраас хизээ яаж одоо тэр нөгөө хамгийн эцсийн гэх юм уу одоо тэр тийм нөгөө тэр нөгөө одоо гаднаас нь нөгөө тийм одоо тэр одоо эцсийн гэж хэлж болох арга хэмжээ авах нь хуулиар тодорхой байх нь нэг талаасаа бас хамгаалт байдаг. Нэг талаасаа. Гэхдээ мэдээж тэр цаг хугацаа ер нь ямар байх хэвээр ямар хэмжээ байх хэвээр гэдэг дээр бас эргэж харах нь зүг бохоо ягаад тэгэхээр угаасаа л одоо олон нийтийн хэлцүүлэг санал бодлыг бас сонсороо гэсэн учраас тийм.
Зөв.
За өнөөдрийн байдлаар миний мэдж байгаа цахим хөгжлийн яамнаас яг энэ хуулийг бол дахин боловсруулж өргөн барьж байгаа зүйл бол байхгүй. Өнөөдрийн байдлаар.
Зөв.
Яг энэ чинь өөрөө нөгөө бас нөгөө хууль эрх зүйн хувьд иж өөрөө нөгөө засгийн газраас өргөн барьчихсан их хурл хүлээж аваад баталчихсан учраас дахин босрож өргөн барьна гэдэг ойлголт магадгүй байхгүй. Тэгэхээр нэг хийгээ гарчихсан дахиад хийлээгвэл дахиад
Шинээр босруулна гэсэн үг тий. Зөв.
Харин зүгээр саяхан ерөнхийлөгч хориг их хурл хүлээж авснаас хойш бас нэр бүхий их хурлын гишүүдээс цахим орчинд хүүхд хамгаалах тухай бас хуулийн төслийг өргөн барьсан байгаа.
Юу гэдэг хуулийн төсөл гинэ?
Цахим орчинд хүүхдийг хамгаалах тухай.
Хүүхдийг хамгаалах тухай. За.
Тэгэхээр энэ бол одоо өргөн барьсанаас хойш их хурлын нөгөө олон нийтийн санал авдаг дийцэг парламент цэг юм нэгээс вебсайтн дээр байж байгаа.
Зөв.
Та бүхэн ороод үзэх юм бол баг нүүр утсанд байж байгаа.
За ойлголоо. За тэгэхээр юуны өмнө бас яг бид нар манай Америкийн худлын техмас бол энэ хууль боловсруулалтын ажил дээр нэлээд идэвхтэй оролцдог. Тэгээд бас цаашдаа яг энэ одоо нийгмийн сүлжээнд дэх хуулийн асуудлаар ч юм уу хүүхдийн эрхийг хамгаалах асуудлаар бид нар бол ер нь хамтарч ажиллахад бэлэн. Тэгээд энэ дээр бас олон улсын юмхүү экспертүүдийг оролцуулаад бодлогын бичиг баримт гаргаад ингээд зөвлөмж байдлаар тийм ээ хамтран ажиллахад бол бэлэн. Энэ хурлыг бол бид нар бас яг энэ ICT week-тэй хамтдагч хийх гэсэн боловч манай Америк руу явдаг доор ногтыг давтцсан учраас болоогүй. За тэгээд одоо түрүү хамсныхаа дагуу юу яа? Цаг асуултууд авъя. Тэгээд тэнд байгаа бүсгүйг гараар өгсөн. Микрофон өгөөрэй. За тэгээд дараа нь та next you.
Баярлалаа. За би нэг юм асуусан. Жижиг дунд үйлдвэрлэлийнхнийг төлөөлж асуух гэж гэсэн. Манайх ч юм бол ер нь олон улсын худалдаанд жижиг дунд бизнес эрхлэгчдийг яаж оролцуулах вэ гэд бараг 95% эзэлдэг гэдэг шүү дээ. Дэлхийн худалдаанд. Гэтэл нөгөө жижиг дунд үйлдвэрлэлүүдэд тохиолдож байгаа хамгийн гол юм бол сая бол нэлээд харагдсан. Ялангуяа ковидын үед бол яаж төлбөр тооцоогоо хийх вэ гэдэг асуудал. Тэгэхээр хил дамсан төлбөр тооцоо, cross border payment гэдэг асуудлууд байна те. Цаашдаа одоо төлбөр тооцооны асуудлууд яаж явагдах вэ? Мэдээж эдийн засаг болж байгаа юм чинь. За тэр яг хоорондын одоо худалдаа холбыг явагдчихж болно. Хамгийн эцсийн гол нь одоо ашигаа бид нэр яаж авах вэ? Ялангуяа SBDC гэдэг байгаа штэ тий, Central Bank Digital Currency гэдэг тэр одоо 7 сараас ахуулаад эхлэн гэсэн нэг юм байдаг. Гэтэл бид нар одоо ямар технологиор яаж тэр төлбөр тооцоогоо хийж авах вэ? За хятадтай бид нар сая хийж байхдаа жижиг дунд үйлдвэрийнхэнтэй уулзж байхад бол голцоо бол WeChat-аар бол хийгээ явчих чинь гэж тэгж байгаа шүү дээ. Төлбөр тооцооны асуудлаа. Гэтэл одоо энэ банкны усуд байж, энэ харилцаа холбооны усуд байж байгаа учраас хэрвээ жижиг дунд үйлдвэрлэлийнхэн одоо энэ SBDC-гийн банкны энэ дүрм журм ашиглалтанд ороод ингээ явах юм бол бид нар одоо яаж төлбөр тооцоо, гадаад төлбөр тооцоогоо яаж хийгдэх ёстой вэ?
За та хинээс асууж байгаа вэ?
За сайтын зөвлөхөөс асууж байна. Бас одоо голомт банкны хүн байж байгаа учраас энэ дээр манайх одоо бодлого байдгийн болов ялангуяа блокчейн технологи гэдэг байгаа шүү дээ. Тэгээд энэ нь одоо яаж цаашаа явагдах юм бэ? Манайх одоо ялангуяа энэ дижитал currency гэдэг дээр яаж авах хэрэгтэй юм болоо?
За тэнгисүүлэх.
За түрүүний минаас дуржээс нөгөө Монгол улсын цахим худалдааны бэлэн байдлын үнэлгээ гэж бид нүүбтэй хамтарч хийсэн гэсэндээ тэрэн дээр бас нэг онцлог үзүүлэлт бол сайнгүй дүн авсан үзүүлэлт бол хил дамсан төлбөр тооцооны асуудал байсан. Гарцаагүй. Ялангуяа Монгол дотроо төлбөрийн хэрэгслүүд бас хоорондоо бүгд яг нэг ижил одоо ажилтгүй тий. Би олон банкны аппликейшн байх хэвээр олон QR-ын шийдэлтэй байдаг гэж аваач тий. Олон банкны шийдэлтэй байдаг. За тэгээд бас яг харьцангуй бас олдоод байж байгаа. Тэгээд энэ дээр бол яг одоо хариуцсан төрийн байгууллага болох Монгол банк бол бас тодорхой ажлуудыг хийж бас байгаа гэж ойлгосон. За олон улсын төлбөр тооцооны гарцыг нэмэгдүүлэх чиглэлээр бас ажиллаж байгаа гэж ойлгосон. Сая бид нэг форум үеэр ярилцсан. Ялангуяа нөгөө онлайнаар шууд төлбөр тооцоо гэдэг тийм төлбөрийн картын уламжлалт систем биш, илүү тэр финтех суурилсан PayPal, Stripe өөр юу гэдэг тэр хэрэгслүүдийг бас оруулж ирэхээр бас судалж хууль эрх зүйн саад байна уугүй юу гэдэг дээрээ Монгол банкны зүгээс ажиллаж байгаа юм билээ. За үр дүн бол бас том утгагүй гарах байх гэж бодож байна. За блокчейн захин мөнгө гэхээр яг Монгол улс чинь одоо захин мөнгөний тухай хуультай захин мөнгөө гаргачихсан финтекүүд бизнесүүд байгаа. За виртуал хөрөнгө буюу одоо нөгөө виртуал хөрөнгийг төлбөр Виртуал хөрөнгөний тухай зохицуулалт бас эхэлчихсэн. Гэхдээ нөгөө олон улсаа трендийг хараад бас хэрэгжилт харилцсан адилгүй байх шиг байна. Тэгэхээр нөгөө бодлогын хувьд бол ийм л байр суурьд байгаа тийм.
Сайн хэлсэн.
За би асуулт монголоор хариулъя явчих гэж бодож байна. За хоёр асуулт байна гэж ойлгоо. Нэг нь болохоор жижиг дундын бизнес маань ялангуяа одоо хятад улс руу бизнес хийхэд төлбөр тооцооны одоо хүндрэл байгаа гэдэг бол бас нэг тодорхой асуулт байх шиг байна. Хоёр дахь нь магадгүй төв банкны одоо дижитал currency хэрвээ гарах юм бол энэ ямар хэлбэрээр гарах вэ? Тэр маань энэ одоо асуудлуудыг шийдэж чадах уу? Магадгүй одоо хятад улс бол жишээ нь аль хэдийнэ туршаад явцсан эхэлсэн байгаа. Энэ дээр яг уу гэдэг. Тэгэхээр хоёр дахьоос нь эхлэе гэж бодож байна. Банкны холбоон дээр байгаа мэдээлэлэр бол би бол өөрөө бас нэг банкны холбооны гишүүн дээр байдаг. Банкны холбоон дээр байгаа мэдээллээр тэгээд төв банкнаас өгж байгаа чиглэлээр болохоор судалгааны ажил дөнгөж эхэлж байгаа. Тэгээд судалгааны ажил дөнгөж одоо эхэлж байгаа гэдэг маань өөрөөр хэлэх юм бол 2024 онд багтаад гарах эсэх нь бол эргэлзээтэй байгаа. Гэхдээ хэрвээ гарлаа гэж тохиолдолд хамгийн түрүүн нөгөө нийгмийн халамжийн мөнгнүүдийг дижитал currency-гаар өгнө гэсэн агуулга. Өөрөөр хэлэх юм бол Монгол улс дотор байгаа үйл ажиллагаагаа зохицуулах нь зөв юмаа гэсэн юм чиглэл явж байгаа гэж ойлгож байгаа. Яг тэгэхээр ялангуяа сүүлийн 6-7 жил нөгөө нийгмийн халамжтай холбоотой, тэтгэвэр тэтгэвчтэй холбоотой, хүүхдийн мөнгөтэй холбоотой ийм одоо мөнгнүүд одоо ард иргэдэд өгж байгаа. Энийг зөв хуваарлах, дээр нь энэ дээр тодорхой хэмжээний одоо удирдлагатай байх зүгээс одоо дижитал currency-г бол ашиглана гэсэн энэ хөлбөр одоо яригдж байгаа юм байлээ. Тэгэхээр олон улсад энэ бол нөгөө ер нь олон улсын жишгээ бодхол ч гэсэн яг төв банкны ийм дижитал currency-тэй улс бол цөөхөн байгаа. Тэгэхээр тэр төвшөнд бол ашиглагдах нь бол хол байх гэж миний зүгээс бодож байна. За хоёр дахь буюу жижиг дунд бизнес эрхлэгчид маань тэгээд дээр нь иргэд маань одоо хятад улстай хамгийн ойр одоо үйл ажиллагаа эрхэлдэг. Тэнтэй холбоотой үйл ажиллагаа гэх юм бол ямар ч хэлсэн өнөөдрийн байдлаар хятад улсаас ирж байгаа одоо зуулчид гэдэг ч юм хятад улсаас ирж байгаа одоо бизнесмэнүүд Монгол улсад одоо Alipay, WeChat-ийн төлбөр тооцоо хийх бол бүрэн боломжтой болсон байгаа. Энэ боломжийг бол одоо Голомт банк, Худалдаа хөгжлийн банк, Hypay гэдэг нэлээд олон Coupay гэдэг олон газрууд бол оруулсан байгаа. Нөгөө талаасаа хятадын одоо WeChat эсвэл Alipay дээр одоо issue талаасаа буюу Монгол одоо картууд бүртгэгдэх, Монгол данснууд бүртгэгдэх гэдэг бас нэг урсгал байгаад байгаа. Тэгэхээр одоо бол яг үхээр Alipay дээр бол одоо та Монгол улсын альч карта аваачаад төлбөр тооцоогоо холбоод одоо карта төлбөр холбоод тэгээд бизнесээ хийж болж байгаа. Гэхдээ тэн дээр шимтгэлийн асуудал байгаа. Хамгийн их одоо тулгарч байгаа асуудал ялангуяа жижиг дундын бизнесүүд маань том дүнтэй гүйлгээ хийхэд гэдэг энэ агуулга орж ирэх бах. WeChat дээр бол банкуудын хооронд яригдж байгаа зүйл байгаа. Зүгээр миний хувьд өөрөө юу гэж энэ төлбөр тооцооны салбарт одоо 10 хэдэн жил ажилласан үнэ бодох хэрэг аль болох тэр issue талынхаа юг одоо WeChat-д бүртгэхгүй байх тал дээр хувийн бодол бол тийм байдаг. Яг тэгэхээр бид нар ингээд мөнгө гэдэг ч юм уу тий одоо санхүү талын банк санхүүгийн талын зүйлсээ аль болох өөрсдөө удирдах явах нь илүү зүг болов уу гэж хардаг. Хэдий тэнд өндөртөө шийдлүүд байгаа ч гэсэн. Гэхдээ бас нөгөө жижиг дундын бизнесүүд эрхлэгчдэр маань нөгөө Alipay, WeChat гэдэг уул нь нөгөө нэг одоо хятадын хамтрагч нэг гэх юм уу тэр маань ч гэсэн нөгөө бидний одоогийн ашигладаг SWIFT, Western Union, MoneyGram гэдэг энэ бүх төлөвлөж маань байгаа шүү дээ. Тэрийгээ бас нөгөө хятад улсын иргэд маань өөрөө их ашиглахгүй байгаа болохоос уул нь тэндээ байгаад байгаа. Тэгэхээр яг зөв замаараа буюу бизнес загвар нь зөв байхаараа бодох юм бол уул нь WeChat-ыг жижиг дундын бизнесийн төлбөр тооцоонд буюу том тэ бизнесийн төлбөр тооцоонд бол нэг ашигламааргүй байгаа. Миний бодлоор бол тэгэхээр тэр тал руугаа бас судлаад үзэх юм бол банкуд дээр бол бүх шийдлүүд байгаа, бүх банкуд дээр шийдлүүд байгаа. Тэгэхээр миний хувьд бол одоо юу гэдэг чинь бидний одоо төлбөр тооцооны асуудал түрүүн бас тэнгис зөвлөхий бас хэллээ. Нөгөө PayPal ч гэдэг ч юм уу, Apple Pay гэдэг ч юм уу энэ шийдлүүд гарч ирж байна. Зүгээр миний хувьд бол Монгол улсын төлбөр тооцоо бол нэлээд өндөр түвшинд хөгжсөн. Ялангуяа хөгжиж байгаа орнуудынхаа төвд бол бүр тийм жишг болохоос төвшөнд хөгжсөн. PayPal гэдэг дээр бол жишээлбэл шаардлага нь орж ирэхдээ одоо аялал жуулчдын салбарынхан гэж орж ирдэг. Гэтэл өнөөдөр Монголын нэг банк тэгээ хоёр банк бас яг PayPal шиг үйлчлэгийг бас үзүүлэх боломжтой болцсон. Зөвхөн нэг жижигхэн л асуудлууд байгаад байгаа. Тэрнээс бол асуудлуудыг шийдвэрлсэн гэж бодож байгаа. За Apple Pay бол яа харахгүй бидний нөгөө зах зээлийн нөхцөл байдал одоо сул байгаа болохоор орж ирэхгүй байгаа. Нөгөө талаас одоо MDS гэдэг ч юм уу яг тэр Apple Pay орж ирэх суурийг бүрдүүлсэн картын tokenization шийдлүүдийг бас хүлээж байгаа тийм арчлууд бас байгаа. Тэгэхээр нөгөө банкны Монголын банкнууд бол энэ дээр бол нэлээд ажиллаж байгаа. Тэгэхээр нөгөө нэг гаргалгаа бол байгаа. Тэр гаргалгаад нөгөө банкудтайгаа харьцдаг банктайгаа бол илүү сайн ажиллах юм бол таны нөгөө нэг асуусан шийдлүүд бол байгаа ох гэж миний хувьд бол хараад байна. Би нөгөө банкн дээр байгаа.
Please go ahead. Your question. Please give him the mic and please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Mahmood Khan. By way of introduction, I came to Mongolia in November 91, so 32 years ago. And I love this country, so whatever comment I'm making are from the point of view that I care for Mongolia. Mongolia has made a tremendous progress. When I do benchmarking studies in 1990, when I first came, the level of per capita GDP was very similar. India, China, Vietnam, Cambodia. I've been to all these countries. I've been setting up businesses. So Mongolia has done relatively better. Now, coming to today's topic, I live in 5 countries currently, so I compare the way my life runs in those 5 countries. I live in America, I live in London, I live in Turkey, I live in India, I live in Mongolia. One topic, because there are 2 bankers sitting in the panel, one topic I want to highlight, and I think in last 2-3 weeks, those of you who are reading Economist, read Economist, there is a very good sort of coverage of digital economy in last few weeks. One area where Mongolia needs to improve is on the transactional cost. I'm finding that in Mongolia, every transaction is being charged from the customer, whether they are paying or they are receiving. Now that to me is unfair. It's unfair as a banking also. India has developed a very good solution where there is zero cost. They call it UPI. Customers do not pay any fees at all. And right now, India is actually giving a lot of those platforms free to the developing countries, including Mongolia. So my suggestion to this forum will be, please study what India is doing. Why are they able to do free transfer of money to individuals? There are 1.4 billion people in India. There are about 1 billion people on digital economy right now. And the cost of transaction for banking purpose is zero. I was actually just joking here with one of my friends. I was running my farm in India from here without any cost. So I want that to make leapfrog Mongolia, certain things which countries like India have done, which are available freely, there's no fees involved. I think all the Mongolians need to get that benefit. That is my submission. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any reactions from our bankers on this? Stefan Sembilik. I don't know what India does, but can Mongolia be free? Just kidding. Transactions.
Okay, so I'm going to start by saying there's no free lunch.
Yeah.
So somebody's paying. In India, for sure, the consumer is not paying, somebody else is paying. There's a cost, whether it's the government, whether it's institutions, somebody's paying. India is very advanced as far as banking system is concerned and all the fintechs that are around it. So it's definitely a direction that we need to take because, of course, if you look at the banking industry, it's very brick and mortar, and we do need to move a lot more to a digital, way of running our business. At the end of the day, it is going to reduce the unit cost. As it reduces the unit cost, that can be passed on to the consumer. But there's a road ahead of us. There's a lot of work to be done there. But definitely, if I look at India or even if I look at Singapore, these are the poster childs as far as I'm concerned. These are the areas that we need to shoot for.
Thank you.
From my point of view, should be at least in one part should have like that kind of fee, maybe the sender. I don't know not clearly, and if I'm not clearly understood your question and comments, in Mongolia, there is an interbank transaction, sender pays, but receiver don't pay any fee in there. And in terms of the fee sharing, is the Bank of Mongolia is getting like 60%. Maybe we could start from that point, maybe from a point, because Bank of Mongolia is just shifting that one, but getting like 60%. Banks are getting the 40% for the interbank transaction. And there is a still room that I see that's the, for example, we have interbank transactions 200 tugruk, but the transaction between accounts in between one bank is 100 tugruk, which is doubled that one. So from my point of view, the banking association also think that we can reduce that one, which is the all those interbank transaction and bank transaction is the same as like 100 tugruk. So, but before that one, there is still so many the things that coming from the government saying that there is so many influence from the government for the banking sector to saying, okay, banking sector should cover these kind of the things by paying this fee. So because of that one, we couldn't do it at the moment, but we have the Mongolian Banking Association saying that we decrease the fee and there is no fee, especially about the purchase. Especially about the purchase, there shouldn't be any kind of fee. And unfortunately, there is a core payment, that kind of a payment, which means because of the account-based transaction, there is still that the buyer giving the fee. But for the card-based transaction in Mongolia, there is no fee for the customer. So there is, of course, the room in there.
Okay, thank you very much. Let us, sorry, I think we're over time, so keep your questions for next panel, please. Okay, thank you very much. Let us give him a round of applause. Our panelists, distinguished panelists. Yeah, thank you very much. And now it's time for coffee break. We have 10 minutes coffee break. Right now, time is 25, so we will get back here at 35. Thank you very much. Санал яагаад гинэ? Okay, those in the foyer, please come and join. We're about to start. 오늘은 нэг санал юмсан юм шүү дээ. Ингээд 5 байгаа шүү. 6 болж байгаа. Биш 5 юм үү те. Тэ наадын презентаци явуулъя те. Chris, what's up? Chris, what's up? 빛상 요가 영어스. 자, хүмүүсээ оруулаарай тий. Chris, I think they fixed it.
Yeah, so what our action is changed by this. Yeah, but don't worry, because I changed the aspect. Change a couple of files. You know what, I kind of need a lot of people. They're good. So I wonder, I'm trying to do that. Oh, okay. You know what? Yeah, so I actually better standard.
All right, let's start, guys. Come on. Everyone in the foyer, please come and join. We're about to start.
I'm not really sure what to do. I think video you already yeah, no, I did. I did. I know I can put it up.
That, I don't. Okay, we're about to start. Okay, so. Okay, thank you guys for joining again. And I would like to now invite on next keynote speech on key trends in emerging technologies. Christopher McCarthy, CEO of Mongolia and Asia, Vice President and Board of Governors, AmCham Cambodia, and also Chair of ICT Committee, AmCham Cambodia. And Chris is a good friend. We met in Cambodia first, and I'm really glad that he is here with us to give this keynote speech. I was very impressed when I heard this presentation in Cambodia on emerging technologies in AI stuff. It was very interesting. So hopefully technical stuff will work out so that we actually can see his great presentation. I welcome to the stage Christopher McCarthy. Let us give him a round of applause, please. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Thanks for staying. I hope everyone had a nice coffee break. So let me just start by saying that I appreciate so much the hospitality of the American Chamber of Commerce in Mongolia. and appreciate very much the warm welcome we had. We saw some of you in Cambodia earlier this year and also online. And I think as you may know, this is part of a program that, although this program here was a fantastic idea from the American Chamber here, but the general program was part of a project that is funded by USAID to connect business chambers across countries in Asia with the goal of sharing ideas, experiences, challenges and opportunities, especially in the digital space. And it's been going on all year. And we think we've had some very good success and response and met a lot of new people and a lot of interesting ideas have been shared, and we hope to continue that. So I will just get started. I have a presentation on emerging technology trends, and spoiler alert, I am specifically going to talk about artificial intelligence. So just let me know when that's ready. Okay. Okay, great. So starting with key trends in emerging technologies, there's a tremendous number of technologies out there. Oh. Now I'm free. There's a lot of emerging technologies that impact businesses today. There's the Internet of Things, there's virtual and augmented reality, which holds tremendous opportunity for training, for medical purposes, for training new engineers, not just for living inside of the metaverse. Blockchain, 3D printing, drones, robotics and automation, cloud computing, not just smart devices, but smarter devices, the datafication of everything, and 5G, of course, AI digital employees, and then even outside of some of these things that we're aware of in the business community, we have amazing new tools in medicine, like CRISPR, which allows for gene editing, makes it quite easy, nanotechnology, nuclear fusion, which is not fission, which we have, but nuclear fusion, which there was a big breakthrough last month. Looks like we may be able to have limitless clean energy, possibly within a couple of decades. So these are exciting times. But I'm here to talk about artificial intelligence because that's something that's right here, right now, and something that impacts all of us and that people are using right away. So we're going to talk about the future of AI, advances in trends and possibilities in Asia. So let me actually just start by asking if I could get a show of hands, who is using AI even once a week, once a day in your work? I see some hands, actually more than half the room. So that's pretty impressive. Because last year, I think most of us had never heard of ChatGPT or Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, some of these tools that are now more and more commonplace. So I think a lot of you know AI has actually been around for quite some time. And AI has been, there's different flavors of AI, like machine learning. And AI has been responsible for some amazing advances, actually. Artificial intelligence has been used to improve crop yields, to help farmers understand where there are droughts, where there are pests, has already significantly improved agricultural yields and reduce crop loss. AI has been able to detect cancer in radiograms, in images, in MRI images, years before radiologists can see it. In fact, that Google scientist who quit last month, Gregory Hinton, who is considered the father of AI, a few years ago, he actually suggested that we should stop training radiologists because the AI can do a much better job. Here's another interesting thing. We've had 40 years to identify 30,000 protein shapes from the human body. It took 40 years to do that. And then in 2 months, we identified the remaining 200 million of them in just 2 months using artificial intelligence. So tremendous opportunities in medicine and other places. Here's a recent article. ChatGPT is being trained as a therapist for mental health, and it's already being trialed. So this can be something that can extend to developing nations or areas of different countries, including, you know, not just Africa or Asia, but parts of the United States and Europe where people can't afford mental health therapy. It's already being tested there. So what are the opportunities here in Asia and emerging markets? I think you just heard about agriculture, healthcare, medicine, manufacturing, education. We can imagine a future where if you've ever had a child in a class where some of the other kids were ahead or they were ahead and the other kids were behind, everybody gets a personalized tutor. Financial inclusion, really there's the potential, and this is what's remarkable, there's a potential to level the playing field across all nations. So not just with developed nations, but developing and emerging countries as well can participate in this AI and knowledge revolution and things we haven't even thought of. But there is actually a real danger that right now, an increasing risk that policymakers will actually inadvertently shut down innovation in artificial intelligence. And I'm going to talk a little about the policy side of this and what's happening right now. There's a risk that policymakers will react and regulate AI in such a way that it stops innovation. And that will be a shame. And it would end up in the hands only of a few large companies. So let's talk about policy development for artificial intelligence. So the typical policy cycle, I think people here who are engaged know about this, is it typically lasts several years. But that process gets blown up and accelerated when something unusual happens. That might be war. We recently saw that happen in the pandemic, where governments had to work very quickly to make policies to address the pandemic. And right now, we're also having that same kind of activity in policymakers with artificial intelligence. There's some special challenges that policymakers have with technological change. Older regulations don't apply. Regulatory gaps exist. There's an inability to anticipate future developments. There's a lack of experts, actually, is one of the big challenges. But one of the biggest challenges when policymakers try to regulate new tech is that they accidentally or inadvertently stop innovation from happening. Not intentionally, but sometimes, especially when things are moving so fast, that can happen. This is an AI image I made called "The Policy Cycle Being Thrown Out the Window" in the style of the defenestration of Prague. So today's regulatory conversation, and this is where the challenge is. Policymakers are now framing policy based on the dialogue that's happening out there online. And it's becoming a little bit of a full-on moral panic. The headlines are about, will AI kill us all? Will AI take our jobs? Will AI lead to greater wealth inequality? Will it lead to biases? Will AI destroy our societies through misinformation, disinformation, or enabling bad actors and hackers to be more effective? And these are important questions. These are real questions. I will answer these questions at the end. The answer to the first question is no. AI is actually not going to kill us all. But the challenge is that the framing of these is driving a lot of the discussion as policymakers make choices. Just to illustrate that, the recent headline from the New York Times: how could AI destroy humanity? The AI race is changing everything. Artificial intelligence is creating a new colonial world order. Yuval Noah Harari, who wrote *Sapiens*, a popular book, argues that AI has already hacked the human operating system and knows how to manipulate us. Here's just from a couple of weeks ago, the International Monetary Fund says that it's a crisis that's broiling. We're all going to be out of a job. Big problems with jobs. The Labour Party in the UK says that you should have a license, just like if you're going to operate a nuclear power plant, you need a license to manage AI. So against this backdrop, there is a lot of legislation being developed. There's the European Union AI Act, there's Canada's AI Act. New York City has several AI policies in place. And actually all 50 states in the United States have AI policies either drafted or moving through the process. Singapore has one, Japan, India, Australia. Everyone is very, very rapidly developing these policies, and they're developing these policies in a framework where it's hard to know what the future brings. And the fear is that this is going to damp down innovation. And specifically what I'm talking about is small and medium enterprises. So let's look at the EU Act. The EU Act may actually bring us something they call the Brussels effect, which is if something passes in the EU and it's required, it may actually extend and be adopted by other countries. So the EU may end up being the gold standard here. So EU actually divides AI into 3 categories: unacceptable risk, high risk, and limited or minimal risk. I'll skip that. But in all cases, if you're going to be using AI in your firm, the European Union's AI Act, which just passed a draft format a couple of weeks ago, requires very high compliance costs. It requires you to set up an office. It requires you to report on how your AI is working. It requires you to set an AI officer in place. And it requires a lot of testing, monitoring, and regular reliability testing and reporting back. So, okay, that sounds safe. That's great. That's important. The challenge is, again, that's very difficult for small and medium businesses to comply with. Japan also has adopted a very similar approach to requiring compliance and being very cautious. So it risks shutting out innovation by small and medium firms. But more importantly, and this is something that's just happening, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of this, the genie is out of the bottle. AI, the horse is out of the barn, as they say. AI is now available to everyone. AI has been open sourced. It is already out there. The tools are small. And what's really shocking about it to computer scientists is how simple the code is that drives artificial intelligence. It's very, very small. There's a story, LearnNet and Houseby is a company that does speech recognition, and they have code that's millions of lines long to try to take speech and turn it into text. And a few weeks ago, OpenAI open-sourced the code for Whisper. It's less than 10,000 lines of code. Apparently, some of the software engineers were weeping at how simple the code was. But what's important about this for policymakers is, here, by the way, this was Facebook's AI open code that they open sourced last week. There's a site here, there's a site called Hugging Face, like the hugging face emoji. This is a center for information about AI. They have a leaderboard with hundreds of open source AIs on it, and it ranks the top ones. Some of the top AI models here perform better than ChatGPT. And here's the thing, you can download these apps to your phone. There are people now running some of these open source AI tools on their phones. If you even have a late model PC, you can download this stuff and you can train it on your own data set. So the challenge there for policymakers is, what does policy and regulation look like if everyone can get these tools and they're already released and you can run them on a phone? I think the challenge here is that policymakers have been thinking who they will regulate is Google and Meta and IBM and Microsoft, but actually it's everyone. So that's going to be a big challenge as well, because if they do regulate AI, how are you going to monitor everyone's phone and computer to make sure they're not doing anything? one more interesting thing I wanted to talk about as we're thinking about policy is there's a concept in political economics called the Baptists and the bootleggers. And this comes from, if you know United States history, there was a period in the early 20th century where Americans woke up one day to find out that alcohol had been banned. I mean, it was slowly coming, but not only was it banned by law, it was enshrined in the Constitution. And I'm going to come back to the policy issue on this. What's interesting about it and why it's studied is because it turned out that the Baptists were a religious group who some of them wanted to ban alcohol sales. Bootleggers were people who made alcohol illegally and sold it without paying tax. And there was a big legitimate alcohol industry. It turns out that the reason the Baptists were so successful is that the bootleggers were secretly supporting them. They actually wanted the Baptists to succeed. They wanted alcohol to be illegal because what it did is it eliminated all of their competition. And so then when the law was passed, all the money went through them. And I mention that because here is Elon Musk on March 29th calling for AI research to come to a halt. Says it's too dangerous. We need to stop. We need to stop for 6 months. And here is Elon Musk 2 weeks later announcing that he's already invested billions of dollars into his own AI firm. So, and here is also Sam Altman from OpenAI. And Sam Altman is in Washington saying, you guys have to regulate me. You guys have to regulate me. I want to be regulated. But if you look what's happening here, OpenAI is essentially Microsoft at this point. So all the big companies are asking to be regulated. And they're asking to be regulated in such a way that it's going to make it very difficult for small and medium businesses to compete. And I just bring this up. I mean, you can have your own opinions. My opinion is that, and I think the research shows, innovation typically comes from small and medium companies. And especially with a platform shift like this, with a platform shift, a major paradigm shift like the way AI is developing, new entrants can come from anywhere. We don't know who the future winners are going to be. And it may come from small little companies, just like Google, which was started by 6 people in a garage. So what is to be done? What can we do while policy is being formulated? So one thing I think is to just carry on with our businesses, to just carry on and continue to experiment. I mean, I urge everyone, if you have not done it, the tools are out there. They're either free or very low cost. You can get access to these tools right now. I see over half the audience is using them already, so I would encourage you to keep doing that. But what can you do now if you have a business or even for a government? What can you do in the setting rules for how to use AI? So I want to mention something that everyone's looking at right now. This came out about 3 weeks ago, and it's causing a bit of a stir in the AI world because of its practical approach. This is guidelines for the responsible use of AI that was put out by the city of Boston in Massachusetts in the United States. So they said, look, we can't wait for regulation and we can't wait for policies to be developed, but we're going to put some common sense guidelines out there for ourselves. And their principle, so they set out some principles and they set out 3 rules, 3 guidelines. That's it, just 3. Their principles are empowerment. As we bring AI into the system, they want to make sure that people are empowered and not disempowered, that people are included and respected, that we have transparency and accountability, that we manage risk as well as innovation, that we have privacy and security, and mostly in the context of the city of Boston, that we have a public purpose, that they have a public purpose to the work. But actually what I love is their 3 initial guidelines because they're so simple. Number 1, fact check and review all content generated by AI, especially if you're going to use it in public communications or in decision making. Well, that seems very reasonable. Second, disclose that you have used AI to generate the content and put a footer, make a reference. And finally, do not share sensitive or private or confidential information in the prompts. That's it. So people were looking for guidance. People were looking for guidance globally. And I think the reason Boston's getting a lot of attention is they put out this, the CTO of the city, put out this very practical, very simple approach. Fact check, be aware of where you're going to, especially if you're using it in decision making, disclose you've used it, and don't put out confidential information into the prompts. It's actually a longer document and it's worth seeing. I don't think this QR code is going to work because it's all squished up, but you can Google it. And so I said I would answer the questions from the beginning. Will AI kill us all? I hope not, but probably not. I mean, we control it. The science fiction movies like The Terminator, certainly entertaining and great stories, but we manage the AI and we control it. And it seems unlikely that any of the developments or some of these thought experiments about how AI takes over the world are going to happen. Will AI take our jobs? This is actually Mark Andreessen of Andreessen Horowitz, and one of the early web pioneers, has written a 26-page letter about this just a couple of weeks ago. It's worth reading. And he talks about how AI won't take our jobs, but it will eliminate some jobs. And what he does is he refers to what a lot of economists talk about is the history of technology. For 400 years, we've had new technologies, whether it was the cotton gin, looms, automation, even more recently, the computer revolution, people were putting accountants out of business. It didn't put accountants out of business. Spreadsheets did not put accountants out of business. It just made more spreadsheets. So if you look at the history of technology, people do get displaced, and that has to be addressed because some jobs will go away. But by and large, in fact, entirely, new technologies tend to generate more jobs, higher wages, and new industries. In fact, right before COVID, there were more jobs with higher wages in more industries than ever before in history. I think that might be a little lower now because of the pandemic. Will AI lead to greater wealth equality? I mean, I put these up, by the way, because I follow all the AI policy discussions, and these are the big questions people are talking about around the world. Wealth inequality. It might in the short term, especially for people who are pioneers in AI, but this is a bigger issue, and this is something policymakers need to address, differently through wealth and perhaps taxation and redistribution policies. But I'll leave that all to your individual nations. But it is an issue. And will AI destroy our societies with misinformation, disinformation, or enabling bad actors? This is actually the one thing that is a big problem. It is an issue. There was an article just the other day about a woman who got a panicked phone call from her daughter, who desperately needed money. She was kidnapped, or I don't know what it was. I forget the details. But the entire thing was completely fabricated. The voice was artificially synthesized based on her daughter's voice. So these are real issues, but these are already crimes, and they're still crimes. They're just enabled by AI. I think what we could do is use AI to help fight some of that stuff, but that is a real problem. Actually, what's most interesting, Gregory Hinton, the Google scientist who quit and wrote a letter warning people about the dangers of AI. I read his letter. I thought it was going to be about killer robots. It was not. It was actually very specifically about crime. He said bad actors already have access. They're already using it. That was his concern. So I think this is a big concern. This is maybe one of the issues that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. So generally, I think we'll be okay. And that's it. So thank you.
Did you guys enjoy that? Awesome, great. So yeah, thank you, Christopher, for this wonderful presentation. And now we will go into the panel discussion number 2, policies on emerging technologies, moderated by Hassot Amarlang, founder of XR Lab. Welcome to the stage. And the panelists include Mr. Christopher McCarthy, CEO Mongolia and Asia, Mr. Narambatar Ichanghorlo, CTO Obertech, Mr. Sachin Nair, Deputy CEO Hambank, Ms. Oyenga Hurlbatar, Director of Technology and Digital Solutions Division, Barlower, Mongolia, Mr. Dave Lee, CEO XMeta. Please welcome to the stage and let us give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. By the way, we would like to thank our sponsors, XMeta and Faro Foundation, and also Mobicom for the ICT IT sponsor. We have high-speed internet here using AI in this room. So thank you, Mobicom. And yeah, let's give them a round of applause too, sponsors. We will have a networking night sponsored by them later around 6 o'clock. So welcome, good luck.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson, for introduction of the panel members and about the topic. So our topic of the panel discussion is about the policies on emerging technologies. So I have 4 questions for you about the emerging technologies, and also I have 4 questions about the policies on those emerging technologies. So let's start our panel discussion. So first question I'm going to ask about is which emerging technologies is the most important to your business, to your industry, or to the government? So I'll start with Mr. Dave. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi. I think for me, for our companies, just by trade, our nature, I think the most important technology would be blockchain. So XMeta is a regulated licensed crypto exchange in Mongolia, working with the biggest liquidity provider in the world. And by nature, there are a lot of technologies involved in operating and running exchange. But most importantly, since it's a crypto exchange, blockchain will be the most important technology that supports the ecosystem. So whether it's from custodian rights, so protecting the assets of the users, or transacting each buy, sell transactions, whether it would be staking. So any other transactions that the users are actually utilizing on the platform is heavily dependent on the blockchain. So the blockchain is the most important emerging technology that we are dependent on. But in addition to that, I believe blockchain is also extremely important in other sectors of the operation as well. So sure, as an exchange, most important is trading, buying, sell, store, right? Deposit, withdrawals. But in addition to that, we have AML, KYT issues, right? So anti-money laundering, knowing your transactions. These are all issues that regulators and policymakers are, constantly on debates, right? And I believe blockchain provides a lot of transparencies. And, people think blockchain is very Wild West. It's just P2P, peer-to-peer, and it's not controllable. It's not, manageable, right? That cannot be monitored. But in today's, sector right now, how far advanced blockchain is, it's actually, I think in the beginning, people were talking transparency and other matters, but it provides all the transparencies, monitoring, and so forth that gives a lot more comfort level for regulatory committees as well as for the users. So yeah, for me, for our company, blockchain will be the most important critical technology.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Next, I would like to ask the same question. Which emerging technologies is most important to your business? From Mr. Sanchin.
Hello. Yep. Thank you for having us today. And this has been a wonderful session. I would like to start off with that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it has been a very wonderful, informative, and very excellent group of people here today. So thank you very much for having me also, right? So yeah, so from emerging technologies, and so from being the largest bank here, I work in Han Bank, and so yeah, blockchain, artificial intelligence, the machine language, natural processing language, so AI and NPL and machine language. These are the technologies, blockchain, and also the intelligence process automation, because we are looking at automating a lot of our work and making sure that we can deliver value to our customers. So that's an area. And open banking is one of the hot topics, right? And like, so how we are looking at it technology wise, how can we use open source and how can we use technologies to enable a partnership between the bank and the other ecosystem. So yeah, so we are looking at all these areas and enable us to provide a better customer service actually. So we are using AI for that, for behavioral scoring to detect the fraud management systems is where we are using. So I think it is interesting times, and all these technologies that we have discussed today, AI and everything, I think that the bank uses all of this, and it is an area that it is going to become much more bigger, and we are going to use more and more of these emerging technologies as we move forward, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchir, for fascinating answer. Also, Mr. Lee, of course. So let's go for the next question is about the policies. So the first question, which government policy about technology impacts you the most? So I'm going to ask that from the Christopher. Yes, Mr. Christopher.
Okay. For my business or for all business? Yes. Well, I think actually probably today the policy that people are looking at the most is around artificial intelligence. I think if anyone's even, and as I saw half the room or more is using it, we've already integrated it into our workflow. We use it for research and for writing to augment those things. We don't actually just let it write those things by itself. But it's been tremendously helpful and productive. So I would say in that area, policies around how AI needs to be regulated and what the compliance costs are. Mostly I worry about, as a business owner, the policies that would increase costs on us and perhaps inadvertently advantage larger businesses over smaller businesses. My colleague, Dr. Bradley, calls it the Walmart problem, which is that you can introduce any compliance requirements you want and Walmart doesn't care because they can afford it. So maybe not a direct answer, but just in general, I see across, especially in Cambodia, where I am, the government is now very interested in consumer protection and data privacy, data storage, data localization, cybersecurity audits, and are considering government regulations to require all of these frequently from firms, and 98% of the businesses in Cambodia have fewer than 20 people. So those kinds of regulations, I think, I mean, they're good ideas, but to require them may actually be a challenge with the costs. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I'll ask the same question. Which government policy about technology impacts you the most? I'm going to ask that from the Mrs. Oyenga. She's Director of Technology in Barla World.
Thank you. So we just, I agree, artificial intelligence is here, whether we are, the ruling with the certain policies or legislation, we are using it. So for example, our company, we offer, the autonomy. So we, some of our customers, mining customers, they're managing their big data with AI, and we don't have any policy. So and then, for example, we have the semi-autonomous mining operation operated with the the operator, human operator, but we want to introduce unmanned, the fully autonomous mining equipment and mining solution, which is already available around the globe, and we want to implement, but the policy and regulation, it's not clear in Mongolia, so we are not ready to, deploy and scale those, the fully autonomous solution in Mongolia. So, but I would like to, before that, the European AI Act just being just discussed. So we're not there yet. So, it's like we need at least, the PayPal here in Mongolia, we should start doing basics. I think we should talk about this, but we should start doing at least, having, the more international companies here. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Songa, for the interesting answer. So next question I'm going to ask is about how has emerging technology changed your business or your industry? So I'm going to ask that from Mr. Narumbatar. He's a CTO of Obor Tech.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry about my language. I'll talk in Mongolian.
Please go ahead.
Манай обертэгч нь өөрөө болохоор ерөөдөө бол одоо шинэ технологиуд дээр суурилсан, одоо блокчейн дээр суурилсан, IoT болон AI суурилсан экосистем хөгжүүлж байгаа юм. Тэгэхээр яг нэг шинэ системүүдийг ашиглаад энэ экосистемийг хөгжүүлж байгаа болохоор бидний одоо энэ бизнесийг ингээд өөрчилсөн гэж ярихад сонирн байна л да. Өөртөө эднийг ашиглаад шинээр юм бий болгож байгаа болохоор харин одоо өнөөдөр policy буюу одоо энэ журмын талаар ярилцж байгаатай холбоотой яг зөв бид нар дээр үүсэж байгаа асуудлыг л ярмаар байгаа. Ярих гэж бодлоо л да. За одоо ингээд шинэ технологиудыг одоо энэ хувийн компаниуд ингээд өөрсдөн дээр хамгийн түрүүнд адапт хийгээд ингээд ашиглаад явж байгаа. Тэгтэл яг энэгээр гарч иж байгаа продуктууд нь одоо энэ төрийн үйлчилгээнүүдтэй одоо уялдаж интеграцж ажиллах дээр хамгийн том барьер байгаа даа. За жишээ нь одоо нэг Монгол улс гэх юм бол төрийн үйлчилгээнүүдтэй шууд холбогдоод ажиллах ганцхан сервис нь болохоор хурдан гэсэн систем л байгаа. Өөр ямар ч систем байхгүй. Одоо 3 дахь компани одоо ямар нэгэн хувийн компани тухайн энэ яамд тэндээс үзүүлж байгаа үйлчлэгээнүүдтэй холбогдоод өөрсдийнхөө хэрэглэгч нарт үйлчлэгээ үзүүлэх гэхээр тухайн системтэй харилцан холбогдох ямар нэг интерфейс одоогор байхгүй. Энэ нь өөрөө хамгийн том барьер одоо энэ Монгол улсад байгаа тал гэж бодож байна. Тэрнээс бол бид нар өөрсдөө бол төрүүлээд одоо түүчилээд явж байгаа гэж ойлгож байгаа юм байна.
Thank you very much for interesting answer also about the questions. So let me ask you another question. So which emerging technologies is important to you personally, not in the sphere of business or industry, but just personally in your life, and why? So I'll ask that question from Mr. Dave.
Hi. So the question is, which emerging technology is most important to me personally and why? Okay. So I'll try to stay away from blockchain. I think it would be more Web3 for me. I am a big fan of AI. I think kind of like if I understood you, things right now anywhere in the world, it's not just Mongolia, right? Even in the US, I don't think there's particular product that is fully AI like certified, that's safe, that kind of touches all the concerns that Christopher mentioned and so forth. And there are a lot of challenges that are up ahead, right? But in Web 3.0, for example, I think it's a great way for companies, or personally, in my opinion, that still works in a decentralized world that offers so many benefits without having these arguments of, is it safe? Is it going to kill anyone? Or, is it going to ruin the society, right? So like being able to utilize a Web3 to benefit and then it can be implemented in every sector, whether it's healthcare, government, private, mining. being able to utilize decentralized systems to be able to provide equal opportunities, right? Being able to store data and so forth, and utilizing those data in a full transparent manner. One of the things that I think, to me, why it's so important is in some of the other companies that I run, especially esports, for example, and being, Asian American, growing up in a big, esports, Counter-Strike, right? Warcraft, all that. Web3 allows people to be able to be part of an ecosystem and have monetary benefits, right? It's not just spending. Before, you're spending, tens of dollars and you're just giving it to the developer and that's it, right? But now utilizing a Web3, you could create a platform where it's a win-win. The players can win, the developers can win, right? And all these independent developers can be part of that ecosystem and build on top of it. And sure, that has, people merge technology. Some people add AI to it, AR, VR. But I think the basis of that is doable through the Web3 and the decentralized system it offers. So to me, the easiest one would be the, blockchain / Web3 that can be utilized today and that could benefit companies, developers, as well as the users, right? So.
Thank you for the answer, Mr. Lee. So let me ask the same question actually from the Mr. Narmbatar. What technologies actually is important, emerging technology is important to you personally and why? Yes, please go ahead.
За яг би өөрөө бас энэ объект ажиллах гол үндсэн шалтгаан гэвэл түрүүний Дэви децентрализашн буюу веб 3. За манай одоо энэ объектийн хөгжүүлж байгаа энэ платформ нь өөрөө бас веб 3 based блокчейн. Яг энэ хоёрыг нэгтгэхэд явах юм бол одоо бидний өнөөдрийн нэг transparency гэж ярьдаг үнэн шударга одоо үнэн зөв байдлыг бид ингээд энэ нийгэмд энэ системээрээ дамжуулаад үрэх болцоог бол ингээд харсан байгаа. Visually би өөр тийм ч учраас одоо энэ компанид ажиллаад энэнийхээ төлөө ингээд явж байгаа. Тэгээд яг адилхан веб 3 блокчейн.
Thank you very much for the answer. Yes, wonderful answer. So let me ask a question about the policy issues from Mrs. Soyanga. So you were talking about the driverless technology for your equipment in the mining sector. So which policies do you think it will be the most beneficial for Mongolia, in your personal opinion, and also in terms of as a company?
So right now, all the mines are operating with the human operator. So in order to, deploy, the unmanned equipment, the autonomous mining solution in Mongolia, we have to change whole infrastructure and how we will address this, the labor issue. We will need all, AI specialists instead of all these, the human operators. So it is a big, huge change. But I didn't know how to, change it. But apparently, the AI fact in Europe is just being discussed as a draft. So, yeah. So I think we're doing the foundations right. Like we have now the data protection law started being effective from last year. So, and then now, we also now, are working on this cybersecurity, etc. So, we have to do the basic foundations right, I think. Yeah. There are big challenges. It's a big change. It's a big cultural change from, this conventional economy to digital economy. It's a big transformation. The country has to change.
And the foundation part is very important. If you lay foundation right, then it can develop from there very well. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for the answer, Ms. Soyanga. So let me ask the question from Mr. Sanchin. So you were talking about your AmCham technologies and how the ecosystems. So could you tell us about the policy that most government policy that most impacts your technology and your company?
Yeah, actually, so one of the technology is changing, right, very fast. Like it doesn't stay the same. Even now, previously we used to have like 5-year strategies and all. It's all gone, like because technology changes so fast. We have to adapt and adopt to these new things that is going on, right? So for us, one of the big things is like how do we like run the technology, like for example, the applications are there, the whole technology stack that we call it, right? So we want to make it cloud native, let's say, right? So because it has to be very agile, we need to move things fast. We need to deploy it. The lead time to deploy an application so that it can go to our customer can be very quick. So we need to be very fast and very flexible and very nimble. So what we look at is like the technologies which are the cloud-enabled technologies, right? We call it the cloud native environment. Now, in Mongolia, like especially for a bank, we are highly regulated, right? Being the public listed bank, you are regulated by by multiple entities, government entities. So what we see, what I see also is that the usage of the cloud is very, it's not clearly documented, like what can be used, what cannot be used. There is a talk of data can sit, cannot go outside the country, but is it the data in transit, data at rest, or what kind of data we are talking about? So I think there is a gray area there, and it holds good for the SMEs, it holds good for the corporates and also for the banks and other industries. I think to have a very detailed and clear policy around the usage of cloud environment and what do we use, what we cannot use, so that it can be much more helpful, I feel, right? And there is a talk going on. I know that with the MBA there was discussions, and with the Bank of Mongolia, and there might be a law coming up where there could be some changes to that. Like, so I hope it comes in faster. There is much more clarity so that we can adopt much faster. We don't have to build everything in-house in the country and spend millions of dollars when we can use on demand as we want. We can use it and move forward, right? So that's what I think should be one of the most important policies that I look forward to hearing from in the near future, actually.
Thank you for the answer, Mr. Sanchin. So clearly we can see that the creation of the policies must to catch up with the pace of the business world also in this scenario. Yes. Thank you. So the next question I'm going to ask from the Mr. Christopher. So you have extensive experience of seeing all those different policies implemented in different countries, especially in ASEAN countries. So could you tell which digital policy in terms of digital transformation was that can be for us as the best policy that you have seen in your experience so far?
So the best policies perhaps in the region that has helped accelerate digital transformation. Oh, that's a difficult question. It's a good question. I think there's good parts and bad parts to a lot of different policies. I see that a number of nations are putting in place tax incentives. So using treasure, using money as a way to incentivize transformation, and suggesting that, you know, if firms integrate certain digital tools or adopt new applications, that they can do basically systems integration and process re-engineering around some of the new tools, that they can deduct those, or that there can be some tax benefits for that. I think I've seen that work most effectively. Singapore's done a good job of that. Indonesia, obviously Singapore's got pros and cons, but they've done a very good job of that. I think Indonesia has done some of that. Cambodia and Thailand also have laws on the books that are promoting digital transformation by offering tax breaks or incentives. Although I will say one of the things that we did learn as part of this program, talking to people on the ground, is that while those programs exist, sometimes it's very difficult to access them, to get all the paperwork filled out the right way, or get the forms stamped from the different ministries. But where that's they have been implemented, they have been successful. So generally money.
Thank you very much for the wonderful answers, for wonderful insights, wonderful ideas. So I think we are running out of time. We only have 4 minutes left. So I'm going to ask only one question. And I think all the panel, I can only ask maybe 2 or 3 people. So the question is very simple. What is the drawback of emerging technologies? Will those technologies will bring problems or unintended consequences? Or you disagree with that statement, you can say also. So I think I will ask from Mr. Narmbar of Bartek.
So яг бид дахиад түрүүнийхээ юм ярих гэж байна л да. Бид нар чи одоо яг манай технологийн хувьд бол өөрөө яг шинээр бий болж байгаа, трендинг болж байгаа технологиудыг ашиглаж байгаа болохоор одоогоор бид нар яг үр дүнгээ хараагүй байгаа байхгүй. Тэгэхээр яг энийг одоо ашигласнараа бид нар ийм буруу юм хүрчлээ гэсэн юм бол одоогоор байхгүй байгаа даа. Одоогоор үр дүн гараагүй байна. Гэхдээ бид нар бол түрүүн хэлсэн сайн болон илүү гой боломжтой ирээдүг бид нар бүтээж болох юм байна гэдгийг хараад энэ технологиудыг адапт хийгээд бид нар юмнуудаа хөгжүүлж байгаа. Тэгэхээр үр дүн бол ирээдүйд харагдах байх. Одоогоор бол би яг энэ технологиг ашигласнараа тэгж болохгүй байна гэсэн юм бол алгаа.
За тэгэхээр ирээдүйд бид нар бол одоо харагдана л гэсэн юм шүү дээ. За баярлалаа. So I will ask the same question, maybe Mr. Dave Lee, if you have any opinions about emerging technologies, if they can bring unintended consequences or problems, maybe right now, maybe not now, maybe in the future. If
for Mongolia, I don't see any negative side of it. So if we're talking for Mongolian market, Mongolia is extremely adaptable. Mongolia, especially the new youth, right? The Generation Z. We are looking at probably the best generations coming around that are adaptive. They're diverse, culturally, educationally, just in every way. And I think simple way is just it's a growing pain and it's a growing curve. Any negatives that will result from these emerging technologies, I don't think they're negatives at all. I think they're just part of a growing pain for them to adapt and learn to. But Mongolia have a very bright future through the tech sector, right? So even when I go to overseas and I speak, it's all about digital transformation of Mongolia, right? Mongolia should be building this digital Silk Road, connecting Europe and Asia. I think Mongolia has a very, very, very powerful chance of becoming a very successful, well-known, respectable country, especially compared to other Southeast Asian countries. From linguistic point of view to just generation cloud, right? Right now, the Generation Z. So I think it's a must. We have to, the leaders must implement technologies. We have to advocate for it, teach them, and go through the process. And I just don't see any negative outcome from it at all.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful and optimistic answer about the emerging technologies and about the Mongolia. So this is the end of our panel discussion. Thank you for the panelists and also to the audience for your patience. So we're going to have a closing remarks by our Byambajargal. She's the chairman of the digital committee for AmCham. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Round of applause, please.
Thank you so much for staying here for 5 hours. And thank you so much for our fan club who actually stick around until the end of the event. So to wrap up today's event, I would like to thank AmCham Mongolia for their organizing the event and networking night. And I also want to thank special thanks to our guests. They flew from Cambodia to be part of today's event. Christopher McCarthy, Nancy Jeff from Mango Tango and Mr. Bradley from Paragon University in Cambodia. And we would love to have you guys here and share your thoughts and insights with us. And today, to wrap up today's event, obviously the panel discussion topic and the speeches were very interesting, especially speeches about AI and emerging technology are very insightful. So we are super happy that we were able to become part of the discussions today. And then most importantly, as you can see, Mongolian attitude, especially positive attitude towards digital transformation can lead to many positive impacts, especially government's preparedness, and small and medium enterprises and then private companies' involvement in the digital transformation is very important, beneficial for the country's future development in digital transformation. And lastly, recognizing digital economy, especially in the country, and its benefits are very essential, and having dialogue and discussions about digital economy is ultimately good for everybody. And we are so thankful for everybody who participated, our panelists, our speakers, and looking forward to have a better discussions in the near future. So thank you so much.